Hello and welcome to the event, A Blue New Deal, Water's Role in a Sustainable and Fair Future, from one of the most iconic and historical places in Vila Nova de Gaia. I invite you to join us in this meeting point for decision makers and different stakeholders, supported by the Portuguese presidency of the Council of the EU and as part of the European Green Week 2021. This event will discuss how the protection of water resources is part and parcel of a climate adaptation strategy that leaves no one behind. With us, we'll have the contribution and experience of public water operators, European policymakers, civil society organizations, experts, and water professionals. And for the opening of this moment, we have with us the Executive Director of Águas de Gaia, Miguel Lemos.
I don't know if it's okay. Okay. Today is a very important day for us, Águas de Gaia, and for me in particular, because it's the first event that Aqua, Publica, Europea organized in Portugal and organized in Vila Nova de Gaia. For this reason, I will do my speech, my welcome speech in Portuguese, my mother language and Camões language. Primeiramente,
First of all, I would like to welcome the Secretary of State of Portugal. It's our pleasure to have you here, Secretary of State of Environment, in this opening session of this European event, which is being broadcasted live all over the world, mainly focusing on Portugal, European Union, and I'd like also to mention a set of countries that speak Portuguese, and we will have with us some of these partners. I would like to welcome also my colleagues of the Board of Directors of the European Institution of Aqua, Bernard, our President, our Vice President, Paolo, and also all other colleagues that belong to this association, this European Association of Public Operators of Water, which is an association that gathers skills and also exchanges know-how, enabling us in our daily life, the management of our companies, to manage better and more efficiently this exchange of ideas and exchange of knowledge. This is the key purpose of our association. The purpose of improving the common knowledge, sharing knowledge, best practices, and also improving the daily life of a vast set of European citizens that rely on our services. It is also interesting in this first initiative organized by Águas de Portugal, this initiative that due to the pandemic was forced to organize this virtual event, and among us Latin peoples, we enjoy these face-to-face sessions because of this personal exchange. Unfortunately, the pandemic brought us this new reality of organizing remote events with no human contact. On the other hand, it's the opportunity for us to reach a wider audience because we are being listened by through several channels. And I would like to thank Echo Capital Verde for the support to this initiative and also broadcasting the event all over the world. I would like to thank the Portuguese presidency of the EU, Portuguese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, when we presented this program that was supported from the very beginning by the Ministry of Environment, namely the Portuguese minister, but our Ministry of Foreign Affairs from the very beginning looked at the program and decided to insert it in the official agenda of the Portuguese presidency. So we are proud of this support, and we are proud of to check that this event is an event that belongs to the Green Week of European Union Green Week. This means that nowadays environmental subjects, be it water resources or decarbonization, environment and sustainability in a wider sense, are subjects that matter to citizens. And the European Union looks at them with a great interest. We will have with us the Secretary of State of the Portuguese government for environment to open the event, but I would like to take the opportunity to say that I'm proud of being a European citizen. I'm proud to belong to this EU, to belong to a continent that has this strategy for decarbonization. We look at these subjects with a great political interest. And I'm proud of being a Portuguese citizen and saying that we have been the first country to set up targets for decarbonization up to 2050. Being the first country to do that, to sign these commitments, it also brings a great responsibility for this Portuguese presidency, and also for us managers of public operators, a huge responsibility, because we know that the subject of environmental sustainability is one that is on the political agenda. I'd like also to say that it is my pleasure to belong and represent my company Águas de Gaia, Waters of Gaia, creating the Aqua Publica, the European Aqua Publica. And I'd like to greet the Secretary Emil, Alicia, Giovanna, who played a key role in this organization, even a remote one when it comes to the organization of this event. This event appeared as an event by Águas de Gaia and Aqua Publica. We joined ECHO and the Capital Verde, so we managed to join three teams that week after week work together as a single team. And we seldom see in this kind of events this joint work. It was a huge pleasure today and see behind us a lot of works, a lot of hours of hard work, discussions, fine-tuning the program, some guests that who accepted it from the very beginning, a lot of participants, former members of the European Parliament, former members of the Commission, and of course a lot of Portuguese citizens who are now watching it, and also colleagues from Portuguese-speaking countries, Angola, São Tomé e Príncipe, Guinea. We have with them a long cooperation in this subject. I would like also to thank all the interest of the participants, those who are watching the event. I wish that this event may really bring a lot of new elements for the wider public debate, so that we as citizens may realize the relevance of the water resources, the relevance of environmental sustainability, and the relevance that we take in our daily life, attitudes and behaviors which are environmentally sound, that may contribute to the targets of decarbonization and to reach the carbon neutrality by 2050. And also so that we may bring water of quality to the European citizens, water of quality, so that we may enjoy this asset, and also treating our wastewaters, treating our river waters also. looking at water resources and the water management as a whole in this integrated way and looking at the different water sources. And by the way, including the issues of energy, which are so important for this issue of decarbonization. Once again, thank you very much. I wish you an excellent event, and may it inform us better, may it allow us to exchange ideas so that we may find amongst us all the solutions for our present and our future. I would like to thank the Secretary of State for Environment, Inês Santos Costa. I would like to give her the floor, and we are proud to have her here live. Nowadays, in these remote events, she might be in her office, but she insisted to be here, to come here to the oldest water reservoir of Vila Nova de Gaia, to watch the event and also to open officially it. Secretary of State, thank you very much.
If I may.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you that are following us on this event. Welcome to this session, to this discussion session on a Blue New Deal. Just a few words in English to welcome you all to this discussion, and I will now switch to Portuguese.
I would start by thanking you for the invitation. I thank Gaia for inviting me to attend this event, of course. I would like to extend my greetings to Miguel, to Águas de Gaia, of course. I will humbly thank for the invitation to open this event, which looks at one of the topics that we consider fundamental for the discussion of the climate policy within the context of the Portuguese presidency of the EU, water. I would start with part of the report of the Carlos Gulbenkian Foundation on the use of water in Portugal. In Portugal, we have gained safe and quality water, but not long ago. These are things that the 21st century is continuously testing with the effort. But the thinking of sustainability cannot be limited to offer and mitigation of waste. We are aware of the value of water or the cost of not having it. We are aware of the water we use every day for our productive activities. It's possible to awaken citizens and activities to that awareness. The history of Portugal in the water sector is more than 30 years old. Personally, I can recall going to the fountain with my grandmother when I went to her home, just 1 hour from Lisbon. But with an investment of 10 million euros, we changed reality in 30 years. Nowadays, we have infrastructures and supply services and wastewater treatment that guarantee that water is clean, safe, that we don't lack water at home, even at times of drought, and allow us to have beaches with higher environmental quality with all direct and indirect benefits resulting from it. That means that we should no longer worry. No, quite the opposite. Given the several difficulties we face, we are growingly aware that we must find management models that will balance resilience, efficiency, and adaptability. Planning, adapting to better manage. Because water is a material but also a resource. It's an ecosystem but also a territory. Without it, we cannot produce much of what we have today. We cannot live. In December 2020, water was negotiated as a resource for future contracts in the New York Stock Exchange market, just like oil and gold. There's more than a symbolic nature. It's the acknowledgement of the growing scarceness associated to this resource, resulting from climate change, but most of all, from its consumption and degradation of quality. We are aware of the figures. Portugal is among the 26 countries in direct risk of extreme drought associated to climate change. The demand for water globally will in the midterm exceed offer if business as usual continues in agriculture or industry. That will probably mean also pollution. Pollution because the technological evolution will never be fast enough, because there will always be someone who thinks that the cost of treating must always be paid by someone other than themselves, the state, the municipality, the community, because there will always be someone who thinks that water will take everything away and clean everything. We still have countries that largely see the fundamental environmental services like water and sanitation like an operational cost to be as low as possible, artificial, where we have interiorized that we'll always have a public fund to resort to, rather than investing in a service that will ensure all economic, social and environmental benefits. Let's see it like this. A 5-liter bottle in a supermarket costs 60 cents. In Portugal, I won't even talk about plastic and all its contradictions. In average, for every cent we pay in our water bill, we receive 9 liters of water in Portugal. It's not just water that comes out of the tap. That cents, besides the 9 liters of water, include the payment for infrastructures, network expansion works, reagents for treatment, energy costs, repair and maintenance, meters, tools, human resources, and suddenly that single cent gets a whole new dimension. And we aren't even talking about wastewater treatment. What we pay for the resource to be returned adequately and treated so that it's not a danger for public health and for the environment. Because beach water continues to have a blue flag in the coastal side, like Gaia with 19 beaches and a marina with blue flags. Does it make sense to manage such an important resource according to the wishes of the economic activities, pressuring the supply, collection and treatment infrastructures that were not designed for such pressure without due and fair distribution of costs? The fact is that water, its protection, quality, treatment and reuse are growingly more at the center of the climate activity, through adaptation, mitigation of the drought and flood effects that Portugal knows so well, that is obvious, and the initiative of the European Union on the regulation of urban wastewater treatment and re-urbanization. And we must keep approaching that. Readaptation must also be done in the way we build and take care of our water and management systems, sewage systems. So we need a systemic and integrated planning, national, sectoral and local. That must be part of the DNA of our regions, leaders and population. The adequate accounting of investment, regulations, penalization of undue use, intervention in equipment, exploring new technologies to solve problems, monitoring, promoting industrial symbiosis, always without failing the network of social protection for those in need. We are approaching all of that in the PENSAP 2030, which we have added rainwater, because it's impossible to think about the evolution of our system and the impact it's subject to without starting to take care of that management. I could talk about the fact that 75% of drinking water in the country is consumed by agriculture and animal farming. In the asymmetries that we have in water management in several sectors, that water efficiency cannot just be seen as room for including more consumption and consequently more pressure on a resource which is growingly scarcer. Why cannot admit that the cost for economic activities to comply with environmental laws should often be pushed to the state, or why, despite the effort of CCDRs and the several entities, SEPNA, police and even the municipalities themselves, which so many cases of fines and environmental crimes end up pushed aside. We cannot use more water than the one provided by nature, and that is the raw truth. It tells us that natural systems have a limit. It's a commitment that must be undertaken by all intervenients, making everyone aware of their responsibility to solve the problem, always privileging the efficient water usage, reinforcement of control, the circular use of the resource, and optimizing infrastructures. When we look at the new public fund cycle in the short mid-term, the Environment Ministry has been doing all it can to ensure that we will still have lines for this sector. In the next cohesion fund, digitalization and areas with a high coverage and low adhesion rate will have to be approached. All of that to make sure that the systems have the necessary tools to promote a true circular use of the service, but a support and a service that can only be sustainable if tariffs cover the cost to guarantee such sustainability. Fundamental environmental services are just that, fundamental. They are part of the pillars that support us, just like all goals of the 2030 Sustainable Development. And if we want green pathways, there's a work that must be done, acknowledging that we are not living in a bubble and our activities have a return. That's why I ask, is there a doubt about the importance of these services, their representation in the territory, their impact on the community, the dedication of the workers associated to it, and some, I might say, who are here with us in this session? From my personal point of view, we must protect our economy and our society, taking into account its basis, the natural system, valorizing it. So, yes, I believe it would be important to have a new Blue Deal that would clearly show, just like the ecologic deal, the Green Deal, all the communicating elements, because it is important for us to understand how things are interconnected, that protecting resources isn't just cleaning rivers and creeks. If we don't act on undue connections, if we don't act to ensure their connection to the network, if we don't plan industrial connections, or if we don't take care of making sure that they use the best environmental practices. Because investment, promotion and valorization of fundamental environmental services are the most transversal and territorial network we have in our country, which is associated to the human component, public health, preservation and regeneration. We cannot continue to see this fundamental service as a cost that must be decreased at any price. We cannot continue to take the risk of doing nothing, saying that it's worthless because costs overcome benefits, when they are only measured by the currency, and the benefits for public health, quality of life, and well-being of our citizens are always broadly undervalued. I truly believe it is through the promotion, empowerment, and valorization of the services that we can have a more competitive country, a more sane and prosperous country. The UN say that for every euro invested in water and sewage, 4 to 6 euros of return come to society. That is why Michael Barry, known as one of the people who managed to profit from the fall of the stock exchange market in 2008, said, "Forget gold, invest in water." It's for more than gold, the value we must manage. Citizens demand it, health and the environment thank you for it. Enjoy the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much of both of you. And now let me introduce the first session of the day. In a sustainable management of water resources as a pillar of a fair climate transition, we'll discuss why protecting of water resources and efficient water management play a key role in enabling a climate transition that leaves no one behind. For this first session, we have with us Afonso Duó from WWF Portugal, Vera Eiro, board member of SR Portuguese Water Regulator, Dan Lertz, deputy mayor of Paris, president of Eau de Paris, This session will be moderated by the journalist Bárbara Silva from Economia newspaper. With us now, it's a pleasure to welcome Bettina Dosser, Head of Unit Clean Water, Directorate General of Environment from European Commission, who will introduce and illustrate how water features in the Green Deal and focus in the New Zero Pollution Action Plan.
Thank you very much. Welcome to everybody from Brussels in Belgium. I'm really, really happy to be a part of your event today. And I also very much like the title because, of course, the Green Deal is a blue deal, as I will try to present to you. I have to say that normally I would have had some slides, but I am unfortunately unable to share the screen. So I'm happy also to not have slides unless it's possible to enable the sharing function to the colleagues here. In the meantime, maybe just to recall briefly for all of you, but you know this, the European Green Deal is one of the top priorities of this Commission, if not the top priority. And this was announced right at the beginning of this mandate, and since then, really a lot has happened. So the European Green Deal is our growth strategy. It's the strategy to bring Europe to climate neutrality and to realize a real transition to a new way of living, of producing, of consuming, and of respecting our resources and our environment. The Green Deal is quite a complicated construction by now, so I'm sharing with you here a bit of an outline. At the beginning, of course, was a document, a communication in itself, which set out the big ambitions and the big strategy. And in the meantime, this has been complemented by individual strategies that go deeper into the individual parts of the Green Deal and that explain and set out actions on how we want to achieve the overall ambition. So today we, of course, focus on the blue elements of the Green Deal. And as you can see in my slides here, and there's already several of them since last year, a great many initiatives have come forward that are really relevant for water and for ensuring that water really plays the role it deserves in this transition that we're all embarking on. So I have selected a few of these to show you in a bit more detail how these initiatives try to embrace the water concept and set out actions that are complementary, of course, to what we are all doing already. So we now go back about 1 year. In March of last year, the new Circular Economy Action Plan was presented, and this is extremely important from the perspective of looking at water as a whole resource in the whole circle, and of making sure that we get to better water efficiency, to saving, to reusing. As you may also know, about the same time last year, our new legal instrument on water reuse came into force, and this is a new instrument that really helps our member states make a contribution to water scarcity alleviation. And I'm also very happy to say that the Portuguese colleagues have been very much involved in the creation of this document. After the circular economy came the biodiversity strategy, which is almost celebrating its first birthday because it came out last May, a bit later than exactly today. This was setting out a concept of nature restoration in which water plays an extremely important role. So you may be familiar with also some of the headline iconic targets that we put in there. This is about recreating naturally flowing rivers, free-flowing rivers as we call them, of making sure that we eliminate as much as possible those obstacles in our rivers that have no more function today. And there's many of them, just in parentheses, in Europe. There's about 1 million kilometers of rivers, and there is an obstacle every kilometer of river overall, if we look at it in an aggregated way, and many of those are obsolete. So the biodiversity strategy is about that in the water area, because, but of course much more, because it is trying to set up an integrated way of looking at the water aquatic ecosystems in the overall ecosystems and in nature protection. About the same time as the biodiversity strategy, we had the so-called farm to fork strategy, and this is particularly important from the point of view of pollution of our waters, because this strategy sets out specific targets of dealing with specific pollutants, nutrients, and those, of course, are one of the very big pressures on our waters in Europe. I would also like to get a bit into some of the sectoral strategies, just to draw your attention to them. There's one on energy system integration. This is crucial in looking at the way energy and water play together. As we know, energy production is closely linked to water also, and energy production also uses a lot of water. So we're trying to set out a new approach to make sure that the water footprint is as small as possible. At the strategic level, the next environmental action program was adopted at the end of last year. This is sort of sorting the environmental objectives of the European Green Deal, putting them into strategic objectives again, and of the overall 6 objectives of the new environmental action program, 2 are specifically relevant for water. There's of course the zero pollution ambition, to which I will get in a little moment, because I understand that this is something that you're particularly interested in today also. And then again, there is the target of protecting biodiversity and natural water system. Then we get a little bit more into the micro level, if I can call it that. So we're looking at overall water savings, water efficiency, both in the Circular Economy Action Plan and also for the energy sector in the energy system integration. But we're also looking more specifically at water savings in, for example, renovation. And you may also be aware of the Bauhaus initiative, which our president announced. This will be a concrete forum where new ideas and innovative ideas can be coming together, be discussed and be developed. And we feel that water will be an absolutely integral part of this, because we all know that a lot of water can be saved in the way we build and in the way we live and consume also at home and in office buildings and so on. Again, back to pollutions, we have a new sustainable chemicals strategy. This is also very important for water, together with the farm to fork strategy. Again, this looks at the way we deal with chemicals, and it tries to bring that together many of the work streams at EU level that deal with chemistry. As we know, in the water area, we also have several pieces of law that look particularly at substances that pollute our waters, and the idea under the sustainable chemical strategy is to treat them horizontally and in an integral way to make sure that we find synergies and treat all of them. Particularly important pollutant of our waters are pharmaceutical substances. Some of you may be familiar with the so-called strategic approach to pharmaceuticals that the Commission came forward under its last mandate, and the new pharmaceuticals strategy that came about last year, at the end of last year, fully integrates this environmental approach to the whole life cycle of pharmaceuticals, from production through consumption and disposal, so that actually we make sure that they don't end up in the water, because once they're there, it's very difficult and expensive also to filter them out and to deal with it. We have at the same time produced a progress report to show that we already have made a lot of progress on the actions that came under the previous pharmaceutical strategy, the approach. And this, as I said, is now fully integrated. Finally, a word on navigation, which I think is also important for Portugal. Of course, navigation, and especially on inland waters, has an impact on our water bodies as well. And we are trying to make sure that this is sustainable, knowing also that in the new ambition of the Green Deal, there is the ambition to make sure that all our modes of transport become more sustainable, and here mobility on water plays also a very important role, but we have to make sure that this does no harm to our water bodies. Finally, there is the adaptation strategy, and I'm very happy to say that the colleagues from the Portuguese presidency have really done a fantastic job in trying to help us promote it. Actually, about just a few weeks ago, EU environment ministers, under the invitation of the Portuguese environment minister, met for a day, and they dedicated this day to water in the adaptation strategy. This was great because we really got all the political impetus and momentum to now work on the individual actions that come out of the adaptation strategy. And we're now at our level, and together with our member states and all stakeholders who are concerned and interested, in the process of devising a new program so that we can work together to make sure that water scarcity and droughts get the attention that they deserve in our days and in the coming years. So I wanted to say a little bit more about the Zero Pollution Action Plan. This is a strategy that was adopted by the Commission very freshly on the 12th of May. And this is putting into practice the so-called zero pollution vision, which was already announced by our president and in the first Green Deal publication. So the idea is to slowly but surely arrive at levels of pollution that are no longer harmful for our own human health and for our ecosystems. Of course, zero pollution is a very high ambition, and we are very much aware that this will not happen overnight, but we are trying to set out a pathway of how we can get there together. And here, the big novelty of this Zero Pollution Action Plan is the really integrative approach, where we no longer look at water on its own and air on its own and soil on its own, but we bring them all together. We see what the pressures are on all the pollution aspects, and we see and look for ways how we can work together to bring them down and to address them. From the water perspective, this is of course in our water legislation already fully enshrined, but we will be able to take this further on the basis of this new zero pollution ambition and actions. So the way the strategy is structured is that it has thematic priorities, and then it has enabling conditions that will make it possible to put these priorities into action. And the way this will be done is through so-called flagship initiatives. There's 9 of them. And the idea is really that under each of these flagships, we find ways, and the actions are already defined in the strategy, to make sure that we achieve concrete, visible results that help us and our planet come to less pollution overall. Some of these flagships are also very integrative and ask for engagement. If you have a chance to look at the document, you will see that there's ways to participate also. And one way, if I may mention it, is also our forthcoming Green Week event, which this year is fully dedicated to the zero pollution topic. And we also have several sessions dedicated to the aspects of water in the zero pollution context. I wanted to say just a little word about also how are we going to finance all these ambitions. So as you know, at the moment, the Commission is making available a very big new package for the recovery period. And in addition, there will be additional funds under the next multi-annual financial framework. So there will be a lot of opportunities. And what we have done from our side is to really encourage and help our member states and stakeholders to make sure that this opportunity now is used to invest in water, to find sustainable investments. We all know that they can also boost the economy and create jobs. And we really hope that our member states will make the most of this. They're at the moment in the process of finalizing their recovery and resilience plans, where they set out how they will spend this recovery money. And we have seen a lot of water projects, maybe not as many as we would have liked, but there's quite a lot planned by those member states where we have already seen final plans, and others will finish very soon. And of course, there's also other instruments. So I already mentioned the next multi-annual financial framework, but the EU level cannot pay for everything. All this funding from the EU level has to come together with national funding, with private funding, with local and other means. And we hope also that the EU funds will be a way to trigger and a catalyst to bring together bigger projects and bigger financing opportunities. The Commission has also proposed, and this has in the meantime come into force, a so-called taxonomy. This is a piece of law that sets out what investments can be considered sustainable, and then a number of criteria are set out. And we are very happy to say that one of the objectives of this instrument is also to make investments in water sustainable, and there is concrete information in there on which investments can be considered sustainable for water and what criteria they have to fulfill. We had given to our member states and stakeholders some examples of what could be sustainable projects in the water area. I've listed them here again. So of course, we are also particularly keen on nature-based solutions, and we know that Portugal, for example, is also very much building on those and using those for their sustainable investments. There is also actually a lot of funds available in the innovation programs at EU level. And again, there is opportunities for water in there. There's opportunities to participate and become involved in water innovation and developments, so that we help also, for example, the zero pollution ambition by coming forward with new technologies and new ways to address water management challenges. I wanted to end just with a little word on our water legislation, which is of course already there, but with the Green Deal and its action has found a complementary way of arriving at its objectives. We also know that in the current period, everything is precious to get us out of the crisis. So we are also happy to say that we're working with all member states to make sure that they are able to use the tracking of the virus in their wastewaters. And for this, the Commission is making available also funds to each member state to help them set this up, so that we hopefully can all move and get out of this crisis as fast as possible. The water legislation is already very complete and comprehensive. You can see in this graph that there is a big acquis already, and this is in constant review and consolidation. So I wanted to also invite you all to look out for what is happening on our water legislation. There's a number of processes at the moment where you can also participate, contribute, make your views known. And this is always via the Commission website where the open public consultations can be accessed. We have one running at the moment on the revision of the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive. We just had one on the Industrial Emissions Directive, and we will have an open public consultation starting in the summer on the revision actually of polluting substances under the water legislation. So this is about priority substances and groundwater pollutants. So just maybe to sum up very briefly, the Green Deal is instrumental in our joint shift towards the greener and better Europe, and water really has a very important role to play in this. We believe there's many opportunities, but we have to seize them together, and we seize them together through actions and through devising the necessary projects, also to put these actions into concrete and implementable little steps. So please stay in touch, contribute, and very happy to keep working with all of you on water. Thank you very much.
Bettina, thank you so much for this this detailed presentation. Indeed, it is very interesting to hear what is being done and what funds are being directed to water initiatives. Sometimes in the Green Deal context, we hear very much about energy, the energy transition, and maybe not so much about water. So I think that it is very interesting and important that we are debating water today, and your presentation was indeed quite interesting in that matter, and also about the zero pollution strategy that has recently been approved. I would like to ask you, in this context of the recovery, of the post-COVID economic recovery, what do you think that the Green Deal and the zero pollution strategy could be used as important tools to make this recovery happen and make it a green recovery, not a recovery like in the past, but a green and sustainable recovery?
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to stress one more time. So the European Green Deal is really our chance to set in motion, and this has of course already started, a real transition towards a more sustainable Europe. And the zero pollution in particular is, I think, relevant for every European citizen, because it's about the air they breathe, and we know that there's a lot still leaving to be desired in our cities and elsewhere. It's about the water that we have around us, maybe not so much about the water we get from the tap, because the situation for drinking water is of course already quite good in Europe. Having said this, to filter the water to make it drinkable is still quite difficult, because our own water bodies where this water comes from are not in good status. And so we believe the Green Deal acts at many levels, and this is of course the political impetus, but it's also the awareness that it raises, and the realization that we can all participate and all make choices that have an impact and that make the quality of our life better. Now, how are we going to do this? I already alluded a bit to the funding that is available at EU level, but of course, this will not be the whole answer, because there's a huge investment gap and it cannot be filled by EU funds only. So our task is really to convince everybody out there that there is a reason why we should invest in zero pollution, and in particular, of course, from my perspective, in clean water projects. And we hope that we can be able to help and to make sure that those who are lacking ideas get inspiration, and that they really make the best possible use of what we are making available, and they are able to convince other sources to contribute as well.
Thank you so much, Bettina. You are going to stay with us for the rest of the panel, and at the end I will get back to you to ask you if you have anything else to add up to the discussion. And now I will give the floor to Vera Eiro. She's the board member of ERSAR, the Portuguese water regulator. Vera, please, if you can share with us your presentation.
Yes, of course. I will share my screen. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Very well. So first of all, I would like to give my thanks for the invitation. Many thanks for having me invited to be a speaker in this in such a relevant conference. And I'm speaking here as a double representative, in fact, because on the one hand, I am representing ERSAR, the Portuguese regulator for the water and waste services, but also I am representing UAREG, the Joint Association of European Regulators for the water sector. So I speak to you in this double capacity, and this will, of course, mean that my presentation will cover different topics. So, yeah, okay. A sustainable management of water resources as a pillar of a fair climate transition, the role of the water regulator. This is our topic here. And of course, this would be a non-ending topic. We would be here, I think, the whole day, the whole week, speaking about this general theme that is general, but also very, very critical to us. So we were saying a while ago that there is much about, there is a topic and the discussion that is everywhere about the energy transition, but we should also be speaking about the water transition. And so this is a very, very relevant topic that would take us the whole day. So I'm proposing here just an agenda where I will cover the regulator's role in water management, what is the role of the Portuguese regulator, and actually what we do at the end of the day, and what is the impact of our role. I will speak to you about the quality of service regulation, the quality of service achievements, and finally, I will bring some challenges and final remarks. I have prepared my speech in English. I would be happy to speak to you in Portuguese, and of course, I would be very, very happy to be in Vila Nova de Gaia, but unfortunately, I am in Lisbon. I will speak in English, and maybe during the conversation, I will change to Portuguese. So, the regulator's role in water management. To provide a bit of context, there is, of course, existing legal framework for the rationalization of the sector and the harmonization of practices and principles. And the EU has been, I would say, the engine to this. There are very, very relevant EU legislative initiatives that have actually imposed on the EU member states that they implement this legislation into their own national legislation. And therefore, things have been moving, of course, sometimes by the incentive of the EU. So there is a framework for community action in the field of water policy, as we have seen before and have heard. There is a concern around sustainability of water services and around the principle of cost recovery. That is all in the legislation, which is very, very diverse and very, very comprehensive. But, well, this is a huge but, actually. There is still significant differences between institutional frameworks and market conditions from country to country, and even within one country, and I'm speaking about Portugal and the Portuguese case, which is the one that I know best, there is a huge diversity of stakeholders when we speak about water. And that means that the water sector is a bit different from other sectors, such as the electricity sector or the gas sector, where there aren't so many stakeholders. There is, therefore, diversity in the stakeholders and in the existing stakeholders. And I think that when we speak about water, we are also speaking about stakeholders that do not have a voice now. We are speaking about the next generation. We are speaking about the children that are still at school, but that have not been born yet. So this brings very, very complexity to this sector. And this brings and claims for a need of strong regulation in this sector in order to provide for the present and to provide for the future. And this also means that there is a need of a joint effort to address common challenges for the sustainability of these services in the EU. So the role of the regulator, of the regulators, and of course of UAREG in particular, is very, very relevant here because of this diversity of stakeholders and because of the essentiality of the good that we are speaking about. This is a good that is essential for us now, and that will be essential for the future generations. So what does WAREG do? Well, WAREG is the Association for the Water Regulators in Europe. We exchange practices, information, and comparisons of existing water sector regulatory models, organize training, technical assistance, and know-how, promote best practice and stable regulation, promote cooperation, and conduct dialogue with other relevant regional and international organizations. This means that, of course, there is a need to understand how water management is being done across Europe, and the discussions and the interactions within the WAREG Association is very, very relevant to understand this. And it's also relevant to bring up and to be able to point out the specific role of a regulator in water management in order to increase confidence in the sector, to foster institutions to cooperate on different levels, to develop transparent, stable, and harmonized frameworks, and to ensure consumer protection and competition in the markets. So regulators are here emerging as a fundamental player that is the player that will ensure the bridge between all these different stakeholders, the existing ones and the future ones. So now coming up to the Portuguese regulator, how have we actually organized the Portuguese regulation in the water, and in the Portuguese case, we bring together water and waste into the same regulator. The water sector, as I referred, is very diverse in what respects the different stakeholders. And there is also one specific feature of the regulation in the water sector that makes it a bit different from what exists in other regulated sectors, as the power sector, for instance, is that the regulatory bodies have not been an imposition that was initially made by the EU. So I have here actually the story of the Portuguese regulator, because it translates and brings up the need to understand that this sector is a moving sector, and that the role of the regulator is not today the same that it was in the past. So in Portugal, ERSAR was born as a body that was dependent from the government as a public institute, and then has developed to become in 2014 an independent regulation authority that is independent from the government, and that is also independent from local authorities, and that needs to be considered as a body that is not under the political influence neither of the government nor of the local authorities. And this is very relevant for the good governance in the water sector. So this is the Portuguese regulation. It covers only mainland, it covers all utilities, and we have around 355 operators that are regulated by ERSAR. I just wanted to focus a bit on our activity, and of course our activity is very it covers many fields, but I wanted to focus on the regulation of water quality services and how we do it, because there is a specific feature from ERSAR that I think it's worth a while exploring, which is the data that we have from all the different water operators that are operating across the country. We have data reported by all the utilities, and this data is validated directly by ERSAR. So we validate the data, and we bring it all to an annual report that then is shared with all the relevant stakeholders, and that actually provides for very relevant data for the indicators of where we were and where we are now. Business intelligence is made by the different stakeholders in the market that use the data that is collected and that is confirmed by ERSAR. We have set out different indicators that actually measure the success of our operators. We have this is a working activity, ongoing activity. We are now in the 3rd generation of the indicators, and in the pipeline we are preparing the 4th generation. And these indicators are used to actually qualify and to grade how operators are managing the water resource. So we have a full characterization and evaluation of each operator, and this seems to be, I think this is one of the most valuable features that we have here in Portugal regarding the water, because when we are speaking about improving, we need to understand what to improve, and we need to have data that is validated and that is certain and that is reliable. And this is one of the key features that we do here in Portugal in ERSAR. So this provides for a benchmarking between the different operators, and at the end of the day, this provides for the possibility to actually grade operators that are doing a very, very good job in the different fields and in the different indicators. Of course, when we speak about regulating and the role of the regulator, it's not just about collecting data. It's not just about helping operators to do a better job. Of course, we need to measure what is the impact of our intervention in the market, and so everything all the data is used also to understand the quality of service that is made throughout the country and to the consumer. So we measure the impact, and we measure what has actually been improved all around the country. And of course, we measure the different regions and municipalities and see who is doing best than the other. So this is actually what we can provide in the different fields of the water regulation. There has been in Portugal a huge evolution in the past decades, but there is still room for improvement. This is what the data shows. There is still very, very much room for improvement. And I would say that more than room for improvement, there is a need for improvement. We need to actually understand that water is a good that is not only ours to use, so we need to ensure the adequate maintenance of infrastructure for now and for the future through monitoring and incentive programs, the improvement of the structural efficiency of the sector in trying to find the optimal scale of operation, improving the operation efficiency of the sector also through cost reduction and increasing productivity, and ensuring the economical and financial sustainability of the sector and an adequate cost recovery policy. We at ERSAR, and also I think that across the Europe for the different water regulators, this is our concern, our mission, and we collect data, we validate data, and we recommend measures, especially concerning tariffs, that should be implemented by the operators. But we need to understand that this is also a matter of choice, a political choice, and the choice needs to be made by the political stakeholders.
Thank you so much, Vera, for that presentation about the role of the Portuguese water regulator, and especially about what has already been done, and what are the challenges, and what needs to still to be done in the future. Now we have here with us Afonso Duó, Water Practice Coordinator of WWF Portugal. Afonso, I welcome you and give you the floor to give you your presentation.
Yes, thank you. Hello to everyone. Good afternoon. And thank you to Aqua, Publica, Europea, and particularly to all the organizers who put this event together in not the best conditions, as we all know. So congratulations for that. I ask Vera to stop the screen sharing so that, okay, that's great. So I think I can share with you mine. Just a moment. There we go. Okay, so I'll have just a brief word, short presentation on what are the policies and instruments we consider that need to be prioritized, mainly at the European level. And we thank you for the invitation to WWF for this opportunity to share with you some of our views on this issue. As most of you may know, WWF is one of the largest conservation NGOs in the world. The main mission is to build a future where people and nature live together, in short. You can read the details in the text, but that's mainly our view, is that we need a bridge that makes effective the co-living of people and nature as we
Afonso, we seem to have lost. Afonso. I don't know if it's a bad internet connection. Okay. Maybe I will have when we try to get Afonso back on track. Vera, if I can ask you, it was in the end. We would leave the questions for last, but regarding your presentation, you said in the end of your presentation that there are some room for improvement, and there is the need for improvement. What are these improvements that can be made in the water infrastructures and in the water sector in Portugal that you can share with us?
Yes, of course. Well, there is the room for improvement is very, very well translated in our annual report. So, and there are different topics that can be focused here, and they vary across the country. So the improvement measure is different in regions of the country and within each municipality. But I will probably choose two of the most critical topics regarding the water management that are particular here in Portugal and that need improvement. One is connected with the losses of water within the system. So we are speaking about savings of water. We are speaking about the consumer using less water. That is the usual speech that we hear. We don't hear that much. The consumers don't know that much about what is lost within the way. What is lost between the what we call alta and the baixa. What is lost between the way because infrastructure is not prepared. What the water that is treated and that does not arrive to our houses. And this is something that needs to be improved here in Portugal. And the data that is collected on a yearly basis shows 20%, 30%, 40% of losses. So this is something that needs to be achieved across the country. In some areas more than others. Our annual report shows is very focused on this, and this is one of the key topics. The other key topics is, of course, around tariffs and cost recovery, and around the principle of poluidor pagador, the principle of the polluter that pays, the principle of the user that needs to pay for the service, and the fact that the tariff needs to actually translate the specific costs of the water in this case. We are not there yet, and this is something that needs to be improved, because we cannot speak only about savings in our tap. We need to speak about savings across the country, across the road of the water, and across the way that the water comes from Alta and goes to the Baixa. And then we need to speak about the recovery of the costs through tariffs in a very, very serious way. I think that Afonso is now here.
Vera, thank you so much for explaining that part. I think it was important to share that. Afonso, please, if you may continue your presentation, the floor is yours again. Maybe not quite there yet. Maybe I will give the. We have here with us also joining us Dan Laert. He is the Deputy Mayor of Paris and President of Eau de Paris. Dan, welcome. And I will give the floor to you while we try to see if the connection, Afonso's connection, is working. So please, Dan, the floor is yours. If you can share your presentation with us, please.
Yes. Thank you for your invitation. It's a pleasure to be with you today. Aqua, Publica, Europea acts every day at the European level to promote and support public management in the water field. And I am glad to be at the side of an active and local member, Águas de Gaia. Eau de Paris Ecological Transition Strategy. Eau de Paris passed early 2021 its new ecological transition strategy for the next 5 years. Developed thanks to the feedbacks of the environmental policies implemented from the 90s, this is a global strategy. Its main goal is to design a sustainable water service from water catchment to water consumer. It includes our partnership with the farmers located on our watershed to preserve water quality, our actions to restore biodiversity on our lands, and to develop renewable energies on our infrastructure. In the city of Paris, it also covers the installation of a misting fountain designed for the cooling of inhabitants during heat waves, and the promotion of tap water to ban the use of plastic bottles. This global strategy involves all the Eau de Paris areas of work. The sustainable management of water resources is a global policy acting on various goals. On the quantitative aspect, as a public service, Eau de Paris aims to reduce its water abductions. In that field, the COVID crisis accelerated the phenomenon observed from a few years. In 2020, the consumption in Paris was 9% under the data of the year before. To achieve our goals on water abduction, we launched an important digitalization and modernization of our network, which led to a 20% decrease of leaks in volume from 26 cubic meters per day and per kilometers in 2015 to 20 cubic meters in 2020. We also launch awareness campaigns to reduce the consumption of water, being an actor of behavior changes. In terms of quality of water, Haute-Paris policy is also ambitious. Half of the water consumed in Paris comes from groundwater, with water catchment areas located in the Parisian geological basin from 80 to 150 kilometers from Paris. Protecting water quality is also protecting soil quality, protecting biodiversity, and protecting the food produced. How do we work? We use various tools to support the farmers in their transition. Our goal, a third of our catchment areas covered by sustainable agricultural systems. By buying farmlands and appoint a farmer with sustainable agricultural practices, 600 hectares owned and 450 hectares to buy before 2026. By advising and supporting farmers in their transition projects, a team of Haute-Paris employees, 4 persons, works daily with the farmers. By creating an aid scheme, agricultural transition represents a risk and an extra cost for the farmers. To support them in their steps, Haute-Paris and the Seine-Normandie Water Agency created an aid scheme. This scheme addresses all the stakes in terms of water preservation, reducing the use of phytosanitary products, increasing the diversity of cultures. The ultimate goal is to reduce water pollution and then reduce the water treatment costs. Benefits are both environmental and economical. From March 2020, the European Commission validated a state aid system specially designed to protect the groundwater catchment areas of Paris. From 2022, we want to generalize this policy into the new common agricultural policy. The role of a local representative in the realization of this policy. As a president of Haute-Paris, but also as a deputy mayor, I do represent the city of Paris in the rural territories where we have our activities. This is an essential interface role to maintain a fair relationship between the production and the consumption areas. We need this dialogue. As deputy mayor, I am also the representative of Paris in various water agencies, Seine-Normandie Water Agency, for example. In these institutions, the water management resources is our core business. As I said, the Seine-Normandie Water Agency is a sponsor of our aid scheme. Being a local representative means being an observer of the water field in this institution, but also being an actor of change through the operator policies, the Haute-Paris policies. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dan, for your presentation. I believe that now we are in conditions to connect to Afonso. The floor is yours, hopefully.
I hope so. I'm very sorry.
No problem.
Can you listen to me in good conditions? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So let's go back to the presentation, and sorry for that again. I hope this goes well. If not, I'm very sorry. Let's see. Okay, so let me move forward on the areas that ANP, which stands for Associação Natureza Portugal, meaning Portugal Nature Association. We represent and work in partnership with WWF Portugal, and we work mainly in these 6 areas that I want to show you. Okay. which of course our major concern here now is fresh water. And on fresh water, we have 4 key priorities, which are those on the screen: water footprint, water stewardship, barrier removal and rivers restoration, and ecological restoration in general related to the improvement of the water cycle. To achieve that, we have a few projects running. I highlight here 4 of the key ones. One is Plantar Água, working to restore post-fire Mediterranean forest in the Serra do Caldeirão in the south of Portugal. Another one with the Spanish partners on connecting rivers on the shared management of transboundary river basins. Quite a few water stewardship projects with some large companies in the country. And a couple of regional landscape restoration dialogues, which is like a big aim we have, and that is in synchrony with what the Green Deal is approaching and aiming for. This is just the example of Plantar Água, which we work with the funding of the Coca-Cola Company Foundation. And just a brief notes on why it is kind of obvious, but let us remind why it is so crucial to preserve these ecosystems. It's not just for the sake of birds and the bees. It's, as you know, healthy freshwater ecosystems are essential for both nature and people. They store vast amounts of carbon, making it crucial for climate change mitigation. Yet, these ecosystems in Europe have been heavily modified, are zones of intense human activity, and are where the biggest decline of species has been detected. In fact, according to the Living Planet report, freshwater has been declining more, freshwater species more than in any other biome, with a reduction of about 83% since 1970. So really, really big. As a consequence of that, only 40% of the EU water bodies are considered to be healthy at this point. And remember that we want to reach the 100% by 2027. This is the curve that the Living Planet report 2020 has showed us. And plus, let me just quote this sentence from the Living Planet report, that traditionally rivers have been valued primarily as water sources, cities, irrigation, and hydropower, as we all know, but they provide a much broader set of services. And this is the invisible part we don't really see. Delivering immense benefits, called ecosystem services to economy and people. And these hidden benefits of rivers, freshwater fish stocks, stable deltas, coastal beach nourishment, fertile floodplains, flood mitigation, etc., many of them related to risk prevention, are invariably not understood, recognized, or valued until they are lost. So let us prevent that. And the cornerstone of what I wanted to talk to you about, the policies that we see that really need to be prioritized in this new framework at the EU level, are to embed water risk management policy in sectorial, across other policies, across other sectorial policies, for agriculture, for urban supply, for energy. We have more and more green policies in every sector, but we lack the crossing of these policies. Secondly, to settle on technical and a politically independent agreement, in the Portuguese case with Spain, to manage what are the shared river basins. You know, rivers don't know any borders. And in the Iberian case, we need to go and move forward, as some good examples exist already in the EU, to have this more independent and permanent management. And thirdly, to prioritize and quantify ecological flows and related ecosystem services, because these ecosystem services are what is really public and of common interest to all of us. So that is why they need to be prioritized before we allocate water for a particular use or for a particular user. So there are a few instruments that need to be prioritized to make this happen. The first set is that risk management tools like insurance schemes, bankable permits, and others need to be embedded in water policies. Another one is that we need financial and administrative incentives and regulations for freeing rivers. I mean, it has been announced, this objective of freeing 25,000 kilometers. We think it's a short goal, but a good one. But now we need the tools to make it happen. Then after huge efforts that have been done in sewage treatment, as many of you here know, it has been a great effort conducted for what we call the located or punctual pollution. We now need to put our efforts to control diffuse pollution. That is probably the main pressure on Mediterranean river basins, I would say. And finally, efficiency, efficiency, efficiency. And we mean by this that this should be the focus, and the first source of fresh water to be used is to recycle, reuse, and reduce, like we've done with so many other materials before. So wastewater reuse, the reduction of network losses, progressive tariffs, the integration of multiple sources, surface, groundwater, and so on, needs to be a top priority. And some of these already exist, but some are still lacking. I'll give you a short example of what has been done in the Algarve recently. So Portugal planned in their recovery program a water efficiency program for the Algarve, which is the southernmost province of the country, and one of the most arid and suffering of water scarcity in many cases. So this plan has some good ideas and others that are not so good. Well, the best part we found in it is that it does focus on water use efficiency measures as a priority option. And some of these are there. They have already financement insured, and that is really a positive thing. Another one that is not there is that on the supply side, making new dams was avoided. So we congratulate the government for that option. What is not so good is that the demand management measures still lack some practical interventions. Some of them are administrative and are not costly, but they need an effort from the public administration that we don't see in the plan. A second one is that on the supply side again, another option was to build a desalination plant. And of course, this has a lot of environmental impacts that are really negative. But we understand that the region might need a baseline for the water supply that desalination could support. In order to make that happen, we really think it requires a significant environmental impact assessment.
Seem to have lost Afonso again. Let me go forward to the questions. Let us introduce the questions, and what I would like to ask both Dan and also Vera, that are still with us in the panel, is what do you think? The Green Deal proposes a rich set of initiatives for sustainable transition, as Bettina outlined. In your view, what should be the top priority or efforts, political priority to ensure an effective protection of water resources? What do you think that still needs to be done in this matter? Maybe Dan, you can go first, and then Vera can share her view.
Thank you. I presented to you our vision at Haute Paris. This is a vision of temperance. We do not think that technology is a magic remedy to all the negative externalities we created. Water pollution, but it is the same for water overconsumption, are consequences of our way of life. Changing our practices from the origin is a priority if we want to protect in the long term water resources. The next step is a negotiation for a greener CAP. The new aid system must take in account the water management resource issues. On the regulatory aspect, the European legislation must allow local authorities and operators to generalize and simplify this payment for environmental services, well appropriated to local situations. The role of public procurement is also Mayor to provide business opportunities to the farmers in their transition process. Collaboration with school canteen system can be also developed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dan. Vera, you can share with us your vision on this?
Yes, of course. This is a very difficult question, I think, and it's a very political question. And from a regulatory point of view, and speaking as a regulator for us, it's usually very difficult to actually have a say in some of the options that are 100% political. Nonetheless, I think that we could pinpoint 3 topics that should be considered as political priorities. And the first one, well, I'm not sure if this is because I come from the legal side of the field. I was a lawyer, and so for me, one of the top priorities would be to actually implement legislation that exists, and to measure the impact of the implementation of the legislation. So good governance, I know that this sounds as a soft remedy, but in this particular case, good governance still doesn't exist, it is still not implemented. And therefore, when I see all the relevant legislative initiatives that are coming from the EU, I would say that one of the top priorities is also for the member states to actually implement these initiatives and to have a measurement of the impact of the implementation of this initiative. So good governance would be the first topic that I would pinpoint here. The second one, well, is more of an operational topic, and maybe it could be considered as the implementation of more sustainable water management practices to mitigate, of course, climate change effects. And this would mean to think hard around reuse of water, around the use that is made in the agriculture and intense agriculture of the water, and how can we actually take more of what we are using now. So reuse would be the key word here also as a second topic that I would pinpoint. And of course, as a third topic, and we are all speaking about this, and sometimes we speak, but we don't do. Circular economy policies, sustainable policies, these are not just words. So we need to understand that legislation is a driver for innovation. We need to implement what is done, and we need to measure the impact of what we are implementing to see if we are going forward in a good way. So circular economy policies, a development of good practices such as water use that I have mentioned should be also a priority to ensure the effective protection of the water resources for today and for tomorrow.
Okay, thank you, Vera. Afonso, we had to jump a little bit forward to the first question. I saw that you were applauding something that Vera was saying. Do you want to maybe comment on this question and follow up what Vera was saying, and then try to pick up your presentation?
Yes, well, thank you so much, Barbara, and my apologies again. I'm not going back to the presentation because maybe the screen sharing is too heavy for this poor connection. So I think we better keep on the debate. I was about to close, in fact, just mentioning some of the opportunities in the EU policy that Bettina had mentioned, and some of our policy recommendations at the EU level, which in fact has something to do with what Vera was saying. There are many regulations in place, but most of them need enforcement. As a good example, the river basin management plans need to include a credible set of measures that are really implemented in most cases. And I know many examples in Southern Europe, at least from Portugal, Spain, Italy, that nearly 10% of the measures were in fact implemented, of the budget that was foreseen. So this is very poor. So to achieve the goals in 2027, we need to make it happen. Also, the connectivity goals that the Green Deal now proposes really need some legally binding and more ambitious targets at the national level so that each country knows where to go, where to make it happen. So I very much agreed with what Vera said, and I understood the question, I think, and this is about our view. I pass you the word. I keep with you on the debate. If the connection fails, you can keep on going without me. Sorry.
Okay, Afonso. The question was indeed regarding the Green Deal, that it proposes a rich set of initiatives for a sustainable transition, and the question was, in your view, what should be the top priority, political priority, to ensure an effective protection of water resources? And then Vera was pinpointing those three aspects when you jumped in and heard what she was sharing. So I don't know if you want to add another thing or as.
Yeah, no, I'm glad I was able to understand that, and I think I've replied already. Just one final note to say that another legal tool that needs to be properly enforced and put in practice is the whole concept of the Water Framework Directive that is so dear to us. But in fact, the basic principles of the user-payer and polluter-payer have not really been implemented. They have been pretty much in the urban supply sector that gathers us here today, but in many of the other sectors, and particularly in the agriculture sector, this has not really been implemented. And that's the effort that we need to, the step we need to take further on. Thank you.
Thank you, Afonso. The second question that I have for you was one thing that I was commenting after Bettina gave her speech and made her presentation, was that water is often said to be essential for life, and indeed it is. But at the same time, all too often, water does not get enough political attention. We hear a lot about energy transition, the need for clean energy, and coming after other political priorities. We seem to get water coming in the end of the line. What should be done, in your view? What should be done for water to get the political focus that it deserves? Maybe we can start with Dan again, if you all agree.
Yes, thank you. I think the problem of water rarefaction all over the world, including our European countries, is modifying our representations on water. The climate change, the global warming is bringing water at the top of the agenda. We need water for electricity generation, for our agriculture, to cool our cities during heat periods. The interconnections between these different issues will bring water into center stage. I think we have to support this mind change.
Thank you so much. Vera, Afonso, I will ask for your power of summary, because this panel is already a little bit long, and we still have to hear from Bettina again to close up. So maybe if I can ask you to share your point of view on this quite briefly, quite quickly. Vera.
Yes, well, maybe conversations like this one also help solving the matter. They don't do it all. Conversation doesn't do it all. Unfortunately, what has happened is that the need has become more visible now. We were in the past only thinking about water as something that is necessary for producing power, for the agriculture. And now we see water as something that is necessary directly to us. It's not for producing, not only for producing power, not only for agriculture, it's to drink, is to wash our hands and protect ourselves from COVID. So this has meant that water is now a bit more in the political agenda, and it needs to be more and more and more in the political agenda so that things change, because at the end of the day, water is a good that is very, very local, very, very regional, very, very, very politicized. And therefore, if it's not in the political agenda, it's very difficult to protect the future, because the future is not very, very good during elections. So we need to put water in the agenda because water is useful for other purposes, but also because we need water now to drink, to wash our hands, to protect ourselves. So I would say that we need to put water in the agenda as power is in the agenda. So we need to speak about water transition in how we think about the water. And then we can think about tariffs, and then we can think about political organization and contracts and how we do it. But we need to think about water as something that is relevant to us directly.
Thank you so much, Vera. Afonso, quite quickly.
Yeah, even shorter. I think it's related to something I mentioned also related to something I mentioned in my slides, was this thing that we don't see, the services that freshwater ecosystems in general provide us. And as we don't see it, it's easier that when there is a flood or a drought, that we come with the relief aid instead of being preventive. And I think this is a cornerstone. We spend billions in response to disasters, when much of these services could really buffer us from these disasters and other services that are crucial to our human activities in general. And of course, they are kind of invisible at first, and we only see it when they're lost, as I've mentioned. So I think that would be crucial, that we need somehow, as Vera was saying, to put it inside our governance scheme, and we see it as a whole, so that we also see what is invisible. That's basically it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I must thank you, all of you, for participating in this panel. I will now give the floor to Bettina to make a final wrap-up of this panel and sharing her views with us after all of what has been discussed. Bettina, I give the floor to you, and also thank you for everything that has been shared, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so very much, and very kind words. You have, I think, raised the expectations now for me, and a kind of final statement, but actually what I would like to say is really very simple. And I think all the others have already said it very, very well. I think the main point is we really have to stop taking water for granted. And we have a situation in Europe now where we are threatened due to the impacts of climate change by too much water and too little water at the same time and in the same countries. So countries like yours or Italy in the south, where in the past we always thought, yeah, there's water scarcity there and maybe growing, but there's also floods. So I think the whole issue of becoming more resilient, of dealing with all the challenges that water poses in parallel, is really very big. And as I mentioned already, we're so grateful for the Portuguese presidency to have put this very, very high on the political agenda. And this will be continued, also has been the case by the past presidency and will be in the future. So at the European level, I think we are all set to make sure that water really stays visible and high up there. I also wanted to thank Afonso for having talked about the river basin management plans, and I wouldn't be able to leave here without having mentioned it. The Water Framework Directive really provides all the tools that we need to do this planning and these concrete setting up of actions with their financing that will help us make concrete progress on our water bodies to bring them into a better situation. So as you may know, there is a deadline. The next river basin management plans, these planning tools that our member states are preparing, is at the end of this year, actually. And in many, many, many member states, these are now out for public consultation. There is a requirement in the Water Framework Directive for this public consultation to take place. And this is really the chance for everybody to get involved. And I think with the new digital area that we have been thrown into because of COVID and the teleworking and all that, we have a chance to reach so many people with this, because now we're all used to being online and to participate really fully actively in these consultations so that all points of view are taken up. And suggestions are made of what each river basin could do to improve the situation, to maintain the situation where it's already good, and to make it better where this needs to happen. So many thanks also to everybody for your enthusiasm, and really at the side of the European Commission, we're here to work with you and to help. So never hesitate to contact us. We may be in Brussels, but we're only on the same screen as you, so we can be reached, and we're happy to help and to discuss and to make sure that we do the best we can for our water bodies. Thank you.
And after this first session, I invite you now, everyone, to make a short e-break, a digital coffee break. We will be back in about 10 minutes. Welcome back to the event, and in this second session, the focus is public water service as drivers of the ecological transformation, a debate moderated by the journalist Bárbara Silva. With us, contributing to circular economy, Kim Augustin, Head of Quality and Energy Management, Hamburg Wasser. Bridging the skill gap, skills gap and green jobs in the water sector with Paul Campbell, Head of Learning and Organizational Development from Scottish Water. Fostering advancement of scientific knowledge in water with Beatriz Colleroux, researchers from the Research Center SMAT. And connecting water to the smart city with Miguel Lemos Rodrigues from Águas de Gaia. But first, let me introduce Mr. Mark Weinmaster, member of the Committee of the Regions and Secretary of State for the European Affairs of the State of Hessen.
Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation. And as you heard about it, I'm the member of the European Committee of the Region, and I've been the rapporteur on the COR for the 2080 opinion on quality of water intended for human consumption that provided a local and regional point of view on the reform of drinking water directive. The EU institutions have approved the final text in December 2020, and it's now being transposed by member states. In the COR, water policy is followed mainly by the Commission for Environment, Climate Change and Energy. And furthermore, the COR has established a working group, Green Deal Going Local, that aims at placing cities and regions at the core of the European Green Deal and ensure that both the EU Sustainable Growth Strategy and the COVID-19 recovery plan translate into direct funding for cities and regions and tangible projects for every territory. One of the main environmental priorities of the Green Deal is the zero pollution ambition for a toxic-free environment. And this framework, the European Commission has approved last week the Zero Pollution Action Plan for air, water, and soil. And the Action Plan includes multiple important proposals on water policy. The Action Plan is of great relevance for the local and regional authorities, and cooperation with the COR is specifically mentioned in connection with the new scoreboard of EU regions' green performance and with the new zero pollution stakeholder platform. Multiple other actions involve local and regional authorities. The action plan is of great importance for the water operators, and its key actions should be part of our conversation. Among its 6 key targets for 2030, the one on water is connected with plastics. Reduction by 50% of plastic litter at sea and by 30% of microplastics released into the environment. An important initiative in this field, included in the action plan, is the Green City Accord. Sanctuary cities commit to tackling the most urgent environmental challenges facing their cities. By joining the Accord, mayors agreed to step up their efforts in 5 key areas by 2030. And in 2020, the current COR has adopted a new opinion on the fitness check of the Water Framework Directive, the Groundwater Directive, the Environmental Quality Standards Directive, and Fluids Directive. The COR opinion stated that water is the most important common good, and it is a limited resource that needs to be protected and used in a sustainable way, in terms of both quality and quantity. Its protection and management transcend regional and national borders, since 60% of rivers basins in the EU extended beyond the territory of a single member state. The opinion encouraged national, regional, and local authorities with publicly-owned water utilities to participate in the Water Erasmus initiative, allowing technical staff to visit counterparts in other member states and learn from their water management practices. Exchanges of this kind, as well as the other initiatives, such as a technical workshop, should be scaled up as they provide an opportunity to raise awareness, foster dialogue, learn about solutions, and build capacity. The opinion called on the commissions to remind all national and local institutions that water is an essential public good, and with a view to this, to better implement water pricing policies in line with the cost recovery principle enshrined in the Water Framework Directive, and to refer to households, agriculture, and industry as water users, as well as to recommend the use of pricing measures such as summer tariffs or consumption-based block tariffs to promote the conservation of the resource. Furthermore, the polluter pays principle should be fully applied through sustainable financing instruments such as extended producer responsibility. The COR urges less silo thinking on water and greater coherence and coordination across all EU legislation, in particular with regard to concerns on climate change, the circular economy, and emerging pollutants. Climate-resilient water management should be mainstreamed in the EU policies, and a clear and ambitious aim set out in the Water Framework Directive for both climate mitigation and adaptation. The Committee of the Regions highlights the potential of using reclaimed water for agriculture irrigation to reduce water scarcity, support adaptation to climate change, and promote circular economy. EU's water-dependent sectors generate 26% of the EU's annual gross value added and employ around 44 million people. I appreciate that one of the next interventions will be on green jobs. 2 weeks ago, the Committee of the Region has adopted 2 new opinions, one on the chemicals strategy and one on marine environment. Both opinions underline the importance of the local and regional dimension and included references to water policy. I invite you to consider the connection of these important sectors in the discussion. In particular, the Committee of the Regions stressed that the achievement of the Marine Strategy Framework Directives is totally dependent on the successful implementation of the Water Framework Directive and the Urban Waste Water Directive. The area of drinking water quality is initially only indirectly affected by the European Green Deal. However, it is clear that the Green Deal is intended to have a positive impact on the water quality of resources, and that this, in addition to the additional indirect effects of climate change, may give us more chances to connect them. May also we have a direct impact on drinking water quality. In detail, the following points are particularly relevant for drinking water quality with regard to climate change and general development trends. Heavy rainfall events and floods can affect the quality of raw water, especially in wells close to the shore. Particular microbiological contamination of the wells can occur. Appropriate well management with increased monitoring in the event of an incident, partial prophylactic disinfection, and or decommissioning of individual wells can be a sensible measure here. These are climate adaptation measures that can be used to react to increasingly occurring events. Such risks will be increasingly considered and implemented within the framework of drinking water monitoring and with the help of the risk assessment and risk management that will be obligatory in the future, independently of the European Green Deal. Depending on the location of water extraction, different substances and trace substances can occur in raw water and in some cases be detected in drinking water. Even so, to date, thanks in part to the blending of different drinking waters of different origins as well as treatment techniques, limit values and health orientation values in drinking water are only exceeded in absolute exceptions. An identification and reduction of the load of such substances in surface water and the discharge of such substances into water bodies as envisaged in the Green Deal, therefore also indirectly benefits water suppliers and drinking water quality. Now, what's the implementation of the amended Drinking Water Directive? The Drinking Water Directive, adopted on December the 15th last year, aims, among other things, to achieve more efficient monitoring of water quality, to update quality standards, to ensure greater transparency and better availability for all. The Drinking Water Directive entered into force on January the 12th, 2021 and must be transposed into national law by member states within 24 months. In addition, certain implementation deadlines apply to some regulations of the Drinking Water Directive. In addition, concretizations, in particular with regard to reporting obligations to the EU Commission and materials in contact with drinking waters, will be defined in the future via implementing acts and delegated acts. The following innovations are particularly relevant, even so implementation, at least in the case of Germany, is still largely the subject of ongoing discussions between the federal and the state governments, in other words, between the central and the regional governments. Already with the amendment of Annexes 2 and 3 of the Drinking Water Directive, the risk-based approach was introduced as an option in European drinking water monitoring. Due to the amended Drinking Water Directive, risk assessments and risk management in the catchment area of the drinking water resource, in the entire supply system of the water utility, and in the drinking water installation in the buildings are to be carried out on a mandatory basis in the future. The mandatory risk-based approach is intended to shift the focus away from the just and product monitoring of drinking water to process-oriented monitoring along the entire supply chain. For example, from the catchment area where the water is extracted to the consumers tap. Risk assessment and catchment risk management must be carried out for the first time by 2027, while there's the first time deadline of 2029 for supply systems and drinking water installations. We have newly included parameters and amended parameter requirements. New parameters included in the Drinking Water Directive include bisphenol A, Legionella, some parameter for perfluorinated and polyfluorinated chemicals, and also for uranium, and a watch list for other substances, for example, pharmaceuticals, hormonally active substances, etc. In addition to these newly included parameters, the requirements for certain parameters have also changed. For example, the future requirements for chromium and lead are to become very stricter. Furthermore, in Germany, it is currently being discussed whether even stricter requirements should be implemented for chromium, among others, and whether the time periods allowed in the Drinking Water Directive until the requirement is met are necessary and cannot be shortened in some cases. Another point is the materials in contact with drinking water. Article L11 of the Drinking Water Directive for the first time sets EU-wide requirements for safe products in contact with drinking waters. In Germany, this is already regulated. However, in the future, European regulations will replace the previous national regulations. In future, a high level of consumer protection through our bureaus will ensure that only safe materials are used, for examples in pipes or taps. More specific details will be provided in the future in implementing and delegated acts. So another very important point was the access to drinking water. In Article 1, the scope of the Drinking Water Directive was amended to the fact that access to drinking water must be improved in the future for all, but especially for vulnerable persons. This is due to the Right to Water initiative from 2013, which called for access to water as human right enshrined in EU law. Among the requirements is a promotion of drinking water provision in public spaces. How and in particular in which legal area the requirements of the Drinking Water Directive can be implemented in Germany is currently still the subject of the discussions between the federal and the state governments. So this is in a nutshell the new parameters of the Drinking Water Directive, and I thank you for your attention.
Much for the detailed presentation about the water directive. And the question that I have for you, it regards precisely this drinking water directive, since you have been involved in its policy process, and now you have to implement it on your region, on the ground, on a daily basis. What are the main challenges that you expect in implementation, and what are your expectations with regard to the contribution of water operators in the implementation of this drinking water directive?
Yes, in my opinion, the most significant innovation of the Drinking Water Directive is a change in the strategy. The change in strategy from end product control in the last, and now it changes to a risk assessment based and a prevention strategy. Additional process control from the well to the consumer's tap is intended to ensure the high quality of drinking waters. And this is this measurement effort is optimized by tailoring it to local conditions. Mandatory risk assessment, risk management based on it, as also recommended by the WHO for more than 10 years, with the water safety blind concept will form the basis for improved drinking water monitoring in the future. And so I think fundamental to such a risk assessment based strategy is also a better regulation on the drinking water side, with the regulations for the protecting of drinking water resources from the Water Framework Directive. For us in Germany, this means increased cooperations in the future between the local environmental authorities, which are looking for the water, and the health authorities who are improving the drinking water. So this, I think, this is the most needed challenge for in this water directive amendment.
Okay, thank you so much, Mark. Thank you for the insights that you brought to our debate. And now we will continue with our panel. And I will give the floor first to our hosts, Miguel Lemos Rodrigues, the Executive Director of Águas de Gaia. Miguel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you for everybody that are listening us in this broadcast format. Well, I will use my first 10 or 20 seconds to repeat some words that I already said at the beginning. First of all, thanks to the other colleagues of Aqua, Publica, Europea, and in particular to the Secretariat. I must thanks to Milo, to Alicia, to Giovanna. We really did a very nice team with our Águas de Gaia team and with Eco team. So thank you very much for your work. Normally, when I am at the meetings of Aqua Publica and in the general assemblies, in the meetings, normally I must speak in English. And today we are here in Gaia, in Portugal, and is the first event that Aqua Publica realized here in Portugal. So, with your permission, I will speak in Portuguese because it's our mother language and is the language of a very famous poet, Portuguese poet, Luís de Camões, and is, of course, for me, a very big honor to host Aqua Publica event, an event that is in the Portuguese EU presidency of European Union, an event that is inside of EU Green Week of European Commission. So is, of course, for me, a big honor to speak in our language. And, of course, because the other colleagues don't know, but we have a lot of other colleagues in the Portuguese-speaking countries, in Angola, Mozambique, São Tomé e Príncipe and others, in Brazil also, that are listening us, so I will use Portuguese. Milo, when we are programming the agenda, Milo asked me to speak about connecting water to the smart city. So, in Portuguese, it means conectar uma cidade através da água. Maybe it feels strange for you. Okay, now I will change the shift for my language.
Conectar a cidade através da água. Em primeiro lugar, o que é isto da cidade inteligente? Eu vou tentar dar a minha visão.
I'll try to give you my idea. Nowadays, a smart city is far more than just a connected city through Wi-Fi devices, through
através de uma série de outros ecossistemas que nós estamos habituados a falar
ecosystems we are used to talk about when we talk about the smart town, air quality, a city that gives you a lot of information
enfim, ao seu ecossistema urbano.
Its urban ecosystem.
Eu já tinha esta visão, mas julgo
It was already my vision before, but I think that the COVID-19 pandemic brought us a new reality, a new insight on how to live cities. A smart city nowadays, I think that
sustentável. Uma cidade
it's supposed to be a sustainable city where living is nice, the best meaning of a smart city. A city where the citizens feel good, where they enjoy living there. This is what we are supposed to build up as agents of the city's development. Public operators, as we are key tools, strategic tools in terms of the development of cities nowadays. From the beginning, I see the cities and the water management in cities, in the regions, as something that is supposed to be integrated. As I said in my welcoming speech, so we must look into the water management as managing the urban water cycle. What I said before in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic, nowadays the citizen wants to live home, to seize this lockdown, to contact nature is the major ambition of the normal citizen. It used to be in the past, now it is even more relevant after this period of lockdown of ours. Mainly those who work in public operators who are forced to stay 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days working, so that water reach the people. So people want to leave their homes, to contact nature. So it's very important to build the city around the water. The one I know the best, Vila Nova de Gaia, has a big, vast set of water lines. We have an Atlantic coast, greater, over 15 kilometers. Then we have our water lines over 1,500 kilometers. And also wastewaters and our grid of rainwaters. In my opinion, talking of smart cities means integrating all this reality in order to have clean water lines so that the citizen may enjoy the nature, may enjoy this urban space, to be with their relatives, to walk, to enjoy the city. In our case, we have an Atlantic coast. We must provide people with this opportunity so that they may attend blue flag beaches, good seawater, good sands, gangways which are beautiful to be enjoyed, are enjoyable. So we only get this because in the background we have a system that only gives back to nature unpolluted water, clean water. We have our sanitation systems, so they deliver to the ocean clean water so that we may have bathing waters high quality. We have water lines, creeks, which end in the sea with clean water. So all this system only works if we think water and water management in this integrated way. Here at Águas de Gaia, in the municipality of Vila Nova de Gaia, we make a 360 degrees management, the whole water cycle, distribution of water, drainage of wastewaters, rainwaters, and we also have what I usually call the funny side of our work that our European colleagues sometimes do not understand. We still manage the Atlantic coast, we manage manage the beaches, we manage the water lines, the riverine areas, the riverine banks.
Costumamos até dizer,
So
não
we
sei se depois na
usually
tradução em
say,
inglês esta piada vai funcionar, mas costumamos dizer que tudo que mete água é connosco. Portanto, tudo que mete água
whatever
é
takes
connosco.
water is up to us.
Portanto, conectar a cidade
So connecting the
fazer uma
city
cidade inteligente
and making
é,
a
a meu
smart
ver,
city is, in
gerir
my
desta
opinion,
forma integrada também os seus recursos.
having this
Uma cidade só
integrated
pode ser
management of the
considerada
water
inteligente
resources.
ou
Smart
se
city
valorizar e se preservar
a city is
os
only
recursos.
smart if
Isto é
it
hoje,
values
é
and
isso que um operador
protects
público de
its
água
water
tem que
resources.
fazer.
This is what the
Logo à
public
partida,
water operator is
entrando
supposed
aqui
to
no
do.
nosso core business, gerindo cada vez
In
mais
getting
e
into
melhor,
our core
gerindo de forma
business,
mais
we must
eficiente,
manage more
reduzindo
efficiently,
perdas de água. E a água não
reducing
faz
water
nada.
leaks.
Portanto, nós só podemos preservar os
So
nossos recursos
we
se
only
nós próprios
preserve our
distribuímos
water
água,
resources if
também
we ourselves,
soubermos o seu
water
real
distributors,
valor e
know
conseguimos
its real
consciencializar a
value
população
and
do
raise
valor da água.
awareness in the population
Há
of
uns
the
anos
water
atrás,
value.
felizmente que essa
Some years
visão
ago,
já mudou. Há uns anos atrás,
some years ago,
julgava-se que a água,
water was
quer dizer,
considered
sendo um bem público,
being
ainda é,
a public
e
asset,
queremos continuar a ser,
and it
mas
is
que
a
água
public
era
asset,
algo
but
que nem sequer
water
tinha
was
valor
had
económico,
no
não
value,
tínhamos
no
que pagar
economic value.
por este
We were
bem.
not supposed
Hoje,
to pay
felizmente,
for it.
que sabemos que temos que
Nowadays,
pagar pelo bem,
fortunately,
primeiro porque
we
o bem
know
tem que ser
that we
preservado
must
enquanto
pay for
escasso,
it,
e depois
because
porque,
it is a
como já foi
scarce
dito ao longo desta
asset.
tarde, várias outras
And
componentes,
we have
nomeadamente
other
aquilo que eu acabei de
components,
dizer, água
namely
despoluída nos mares, nos
unpolluted
rios, nas
water
ribeiras, sistemas de
in rivers,
drenagem de águas
creeks,
residuais e pluviais a
wastewater
funcionar,
drainage systems,
também tem um custo, tem um custo para o
rainwater's
cidadão,
working.
tem que pagar na
It
fatura
has a
da
cost.
água.
So the
Portanto, por isso é
citizens
que
is
eu
supposed
digo
to
que,
pay
e
this
afirmo
cost.
que a água tem de facto um papel
So
pilar
the role plays a key
estratégico
role,
na cidade
strategic
inteligente.
role within the smart
Depois
city.
aqui alguns temas, alguns
then a
tópicos que
few
depois poderão ser aprofundados
Subjects,
no
a
debate.
couple of themes that we may come back later on.
Quer dizer, temas grandes.
Major
Água para consumo humano de qualidade,
themes,
portanto é um papel, obviamente, do
human
dos
consumption
operadores.
water,
Água e
good
saneamento
quality,
para todos. Aliás, dos
water and
o sexto
sanitation for
objetivo
all, and
dos
sewage for
objetivos do
all,
milénio,
one
para a
of the
sustentabilidade.
goals
Também
of the
temos que
millennium
olhar para
is
ele
this
e
one,
temos que
exactly,
ter a
we must
nossa
look at it,
perspectiva
and
de
we must
que todos
have
os
this
dias estamos a
perspective
contribuir
that
para este
every
mesmo
day
objetivo,
we are
eficiência na
working
gestão,
for it,
como há pouco estava a dizer,
efficient
nomeadamente na
management,
redução de perdas de água
namely
e
reducing water leaks,
na redução de água não
and
faturada.
reducing
Portanto, hoje as
non-invoiced
empresas e os
water.
operadores públicos, pelo
Nowadays,
menos
companies
em Portugal
and
e sim,
public
na Europa
operators,
também,
at least in
também
Portugal,
se comparam muito por este índice.
compare themselves according to this indicator, the indicator of water leaks and its value. It's very important how we connect the water and the smart city. And telemetry. Nowadays it's a reality all over Europe and also in Portugal. And so from this perspective I would like to share
São
our
vários
experience
os,
with you.
não quero entrar muito em questões técnicas, mas são
don't want to
vários
get in
ecossistemas,
detail,
desde o LoRa,
details,
o NB-OT,
there are
o
plenty of
Sigfox,
systems,
quer dizer, várias, os
used
próprios
to
operadores
provide this,
de telecomunicações que têm
telemetry,
sistemas de telemetria.
telecommunications
Nós, aqui
operators
em Vila
have
Nova de
a
Gaia,
lot of systems,
temos
and
Águas de
here
Gaia,
at
optámos
Gaia
por
we
criar o nosso
elected
ecossistema próprio,
our own
baseado numa rede mesh,
ecosystems
em que cada computador
based on a specific
funciona
network.
como um
Each
device,
meter
dispositivo que
works as a
comunica entre si,
device
criando
that
aqui
communicates with other devices
ecossistema de
and
comunicações
creating an
no qual nós
ecosystem
estamos
of
agora
communications.
a apostar e
And we are
a transformar
betting
o
on
nosso
it.
parque de contadores
We are
em,
transforming
portanto,
our meter
acoplando,
park,
esta temática da telemetria
adding
e
this
telemetria,
team of
portanto, aos nossos
telemetry and
computadores,
adding this
o que
telemetry to our
permite,
meters.
logo à partida, contribuir para
And so
balanço
it is
hídrico,
possible to create
em
a
tempo
water
real,
balance, a real-time water balance.
hídrico dinâmico.
It's a dynamic balance,
em conjunto
and it
com a
enables
criação
us
de ZMCs, que é uma aposta
with
que
the
também
creation
estamos a
of
fazer nas Águas de
DMCs.
Gaia, portanto, zonas de medição e controle.
So we have zones of measurement, and control, ZMCs. So we may also reduce water leaks. We launch proactive actions together with our customers. Very soon we will have a proactive communication with our customers. The customer receives in his mobile device a message that has an unusual water consumption, leak, for example.
primeiro, reduzir o stress
first of all, to reduce the a posteriori stress, because this kind of problems create claims from the customer to the operator. So we have this direct
E depois permite-nos ter, de facto, aqui uma série de dados de gestão importantes para o nosso trabalho do dia-a-dia. E ter aqui, de facto, esta mudança de paradigma, que é o balanço analítico
we have an analytic water balance in real time, something that so far was not possible. Furthermore, we have the telemanagement system based on a protocol, a telecommunications protocol. All the network has sensors and probes that gives us the possibility of getting inputs on how the system, how the operation is running, and also to identify abnormalities, water leaks, and triggering our technical means to solve the problems.
Estamos a evoluir muito e muito rapidamente.
We are also evolving fast.
Uns tempos atrás, os operadores públicos de água eram vistos
some time ago, public water operators were considered as grey companies, concrete water. It was necessary to build water lines, water tubes, to enlarge the pipes. So really heavy companies of civil construction. Nowadays, water companies are highly technological companies.
Temos hoje em tempo real
e com base in real time and based on artificial intelligence, we have management inputs based on KPI indicators that provide us daily information. As a manager in my mobile device, I know the quantity of hours sold, distributed, the losses, invoicing, debt. This is very important when it comes to manage such a company. We might say that it's a merchant way of seeing the problem, but it isn't. It isn't, because the whole management is based on these parameters in order to improve the water resources, in order to improve the management and reducing the wastes. And then our geoanalysis, where with the maps, we may view the city and map the whole operation.
E, portanto, nós o temos vindo a investir nestes últimos tempos.
We have been investing heavily within this logic of smart city, and water is on making a more digital company, running projects, others already ended, projects that will start soon. We launched quite recently a project that is very simple, but simultaneally a genial one. We sealed our meters. Of course, they are already sealed to prevent breaches, but we added to the seals a QR code that together with a mobile device of our staff gives us the X-ray of this customer and makes a real-time communication with our information system. It was developed inside the company, this system, so it enables us to provide a better management, connecting the city and making it smarter. Because this member of the staff, when goes to the customer, if he is looking for information, no need to call the headquarters, to come back to the headquarters. The whole information is there through this QR code, and he may also introduce new information. Then we connected this to the energy consumptions. We all know that energy has a major weight when it comes to our operations. The more energy, renewable energy we consume, the better. But simultaneously, the less energy we consume, the better. Of course, we have two sides here, the financial side of the management and the environmental side of the management. And since we are here in an event called the Blue New Deal, we are facing serious commitments of decarbonization by 2050. So I would say that water operators are responsible in the front line for the decarbonization targets. I'm pretty sure that in Europe and in Portugal we are helping for these goals to be possible. When we decided to make specific work, for example, to increase our seawater our sewage network, we decide whether a new station, pumping station is necessary or not. Of course, these management decisions take into account energy consumptions. And then, having all this together in our laptop, with these mobile devices, making real-time decisions, better decisions, building here or building there. So this is, in my opinion, building the smart city through the water. Briefly, 3 projects I would like to highlight. The one we call the KPI project, getting the daily management indicators, daily water system, that is a water modeling system that together with our telemanagement system gives us the possibility of getting a dashboard where everything happens. It's possible to see what's happening and taking measures on it. The sealing of meters through QR code. We have almost no paper between our staff, between us. We replace thousands of sheets of paper by megabytes of information. So we have this perspective of getting a city for the citizen. Water operators, we have not only the responsibility of having water distribution systems of quality and wastewater drainage systems, we must also look to the rainwaters as an autonomous system that must be bad for us. It will mean that means that rainwaters will not go to water treatment plants, and we also have water line management, which are excellent for the population to walk, to enjoy with their pets, with their relatives, to unlock down in this post-COVID-19 pandemic period. I know that during your coffee break you had a couple of images on our city, and they really show our vision, joining nature, water, and the construction of the city. So having a city that protects its water resources, that builds with sustainability and around the water. A city more and more sustainable. This is my vision. Most likely when you consider this subject, connecting the city for water systems, we might have a more technical perspective, but I will leave it to the debate. Anyway, in my opinion, nowadays, looking into a smart city, more than connected, highly technological, it's basically a sustainable city that protects its citizens, that is enjoyable by its citizens.
With Wi-Fi, IoT device, and a lot of other systems, but a nice city. I finish with, again in English, to invite all the colleagues after the COVID to come to Portugal, to come to Gaia, maybe in another event, but here not virtually. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Miguel. I will not summarize to our other panelists what Miguel was saying, but mainly we are completely surrounded here by water. We have Douro River, we have the ocean, so a lot of water that has to be managed in a quite intelligent manner, and that was what Miguel was explaining to us in his presentation. So I will give the floor now to Kim Augustin, Head of Quality and Energy Management of Hamburg Wasser. Kim, please, the floor is yours. Share with us your presentation and your vision, please. Kim, I think that maybe you're on mute.
Now it's better?
Oh, yes, much better. Thank you.
Much better. The old problem. Sorry.
Thank you.
So much for technology development. I'm Kim Augustin, responsible at Hamburg Water for management system for quality, sustainability, climate protection, and technology development. But sometimes problems are there, yes. Oops, it doesn't work. Yes. Hamburg Wasser is a utility, a water utility and a wastewater utility. We are owned by the city of Hamburg, but run like a private company. So on the one hand, we are committed to the inhabitants and to political goals. On the other side, we have nearly the freedom of a private company, not like a real private company, but nearly. And so we think we unite the best of the two worlds. We serve about 2 million inhabitants, manage about 11,000 kilometers of water and wastewater grid. And the photo shows you half of our Sludge plant, and the other half is about 3 kilometers distant. This is situated in a harbor, in an island situation, and due to lack of space. We like to think of us as an innovative company. What you can see here, the big rectangle building with the 3 chimneys, this is a sludge incineration plant. We burn all our sludge since 1997, and this gives us the privilege to have a lot of heat. The heat is enough to dry the sludge. This is the rectangle building right next to the incineration plant, and the heat left over is used to heat the digester tanks. And all together this is a perfect circle of heat. We are fully, by 100% closed the heat circle. And we even have enough heat to heat the terminal, the container terminal next door. Today, as we are talking about circular economy, I will focus on the Sludge plant and will more or less skip our water section. What we did, we built this sludge incineration plant, I told you, and now we just built this phosphorus nutrient recovery plant, which will go in operation next week, or at least in May it will go. We hope to reclaim about 80% of the phosphorus which is contained in the ashes of this sludge incineration plant. So this is a nice closed circle of phosphorus. We also work together with authorities in stormwater management. We see we have to adapt to climate change, and we see many intense and heavy rains in Hamburg, and this is increasingly at increasingly rate, and we have to react to this, and we do this. In about 2008, we felt the framework conditions are more and more in flux, and we also in 2008 climate change was a topic. urbanization in the world, aging infrastructure, nutrients recovery, all these things came up, and we thought about, is it the right thing to optimize always at the end of the pipe? Perhaps we should start at the beginning, and that was the idea of the Hamburg water cycle, where we in a city quarter of Hamburg with about 800 users, housing units, 2,500 inhabitants, tried a new way to manage water. I will not emphasize on this because you could talk about this half an hour or more. You could look it up in the internet. What's important, our framework conditions are in flux. We have to try to mitigate carbon dioxide emissions. Also, that was something our politics wanted in Hamburg. And we also had another driver, economy. I show you this picture. This is an important picture. This gives you the development of water supply from the beginning in Hamburg, from 1850 to more or less today. And you see the red line is the inhabitants, and all the blue lines is the water we supplied. And yeah, it always moves me when I see this picture, what happens in World War II, but this is not the topic of today. I want you to focus on what happened after 1975. We had a dramatic decrease in water consumption, which is good for environment, which is not so good for a company who's billing by the cube meter and which has about 80% fixed cost. It's not so nice, so we had to think about how to reduce costs. And wastewater treatment plants, waterworks are very energy consuming, so we thought about how to save energy in our sewage plant or in the waterworks. And this is where we started. We started with about 100,000 tons of carbon dioxide emissions a year. And the green number, 7.6%, is the percentage how much energy we produce by ourselves based on the total demand. Now we are 2020. It has totally changed. We are now energy self-sufficient by about 95%, and are arithmetically a carbon dioxide sink, which is not true. If you take the two things, and then we also still emit about 3,000 or 4,000 tons of carbon dioxide. Regarding electricity, heat and fuels, I must say. And this is a loss or reduction by 97%. And how did we achieve this? A simple analysis, a vision, strategy, and a management wants to act. And we built incineration plants. We built a couple of CHPs, a couple of wind turbines, solar power, very important. We nowadays have so much biogas in our plant so that we can upgrade it and put it into the public net as biomethane. And all our cars are driving with this biomethane with zero emissions. The rest of this, our energy demand, we purchase green electricity only. I skip all the energy saving project because this is the other thing you can do. You just improve the energy production and you reduce the demand. Yes, we saved a lot of carbon dioxide. We spent a lot of money. Did it pay? Yes, it did. The blue line gives you the electricity prices from mains. The red line gives you our energy costs, inclusive the capital investments. So that was a case win-win for economy and ecology. And normally when the heads of the wastewater treatment plants meet and talk about energy, there are always sad faces. Except our chief, our head of the sewage plant, is always smiling when it comes to energy prices, because that was a really good thing we achieved. What to do next? What you see here in the picture is we are now focusing even more on climate protection. This is a sludge tank cover we built last year, which is the first one in Germany. And it saves about 10,000 tons of carbon dioxide equivalents in methane. So what one do we want to do next? I showed you that 75%, we are 75% self-efficient in energy. We want to raise that to 100%, which we should do this by 2030. It's possible. At the moment, we are developing a technology for about 99% removal of microplastic germs in pharmaceuticals, which gives also a chance of water use for the city. And the third project I want to just mention here, which we just started this year, is the question, are zero emissions, according to Greenhouse Gas Protocol, are zero emissions possible? I'm not sure. That would include all emissions of the wastewater treatment plant and the waterworks, all construction activities, mobility, and so on. We give it a try. We want to assess the situation until next year, and then come up with a plan how it could be done. And yes, and I'm very anxious to see what we can up with. So that was my last slide in a very quick survey. I showed you closing loops is possible, but not easy. Carbon dioxide mitigation can pay off, but it needs the hard work of many skilled engineers. And for us, it took about 20 years to get where we are now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kim. Thank you for your presentation and for sharing the Hamburg Wasser example and the practices that you are putting in place. And now we have Paul Campbell. He is the head of learning and organizational and development of Scottish Water. Paul, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
You can share. Thank you.
Can everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to have this opportunity to speak to you today. So as you said, my name is Paul Campbell and I'm the head of learning and organisational development at Scottish Water. So today I will be speaking to you about bridging the skills gap and more specifically the contribution that water operators can make to developing skills, creating new green jobs and ultimately supporting the move towards a more sustainable organisation and a more sustainable economy. So to begin, I wanted to give you a little information about Scottish Water, who we are and what we do. Now, in the interest of time, I don't intend to go through all of this, but just to pick out a few areas, we are the 4th largest water company in the UK. We remain a public sector organisation. although our performance is benchmarked against and comparable with the private water companies in England and Wales. We deliver around 1.4 billion litres of clear fresh water every day, and we treat around 983 million litres of wastewater too. We have just over 4,000 employees and also some contingent workers who work with us and support us. And maybe an interesting fact just to pull out of here is that we've got over 30,000 miles of water distribution pipes, which is enough to go around the entire circumference of planet Earth. And hopefully this kind of highlights why we need skilled and talented people and capable partners and suppliers that we work with as well to look after all of these precious assets and precious natural resources as well. So again, next I would like to just talk about our Scottish Water's purpose. I thought I would touch on this briefly today. The reason being that this is, I suppose, is very central to who we are as an organisation, who we are and what we do. Our overarching purpose is to support a flourishing Scotland through being trusted to care for the water on which Scotland depends. And this really places our purpose and our organisation's purpose at the very heart of our own country. It emphasises the positive and the active role that we are seeking to play within Scottish society as an organisation. And our commitment to developing young people, to building the skills and talents that we need for the future and creating a sustainable water sector is absolutely central to that purpose, and it's a key aspect of this societal role that we are seeking to play. And of course, it can also be incredibly motivational and engaging too for employees if they feel that they work in an organisation where they can make positive contributions to wider society. And that's one of the reasons actually that we give all of our employees 2 days to volunteer, that they can take and use those days to contribute towards making some form of social or societal impact of their choice. But maybe moving on more specifically now to look at our youth strategy. We call it our emerging talent and our youth strategy. So we've got quite a broad talent and youth strategy in Scottish Water. It begins with the educational work that we do within schools. So for example, we've just created 2 new digital learning platforms for primary schools and secondary schools in Scotland, and these contain a range of engaging and interactive digital learning content to help educate young people about the world of water, water science, the environment and environmental citizenship, etc. Now we also work quite closely in partnership with a number of schools as well, and we do this in very specific areas of development, such as encouraging young women to become interested in STEM, which is science, technology, engineering and maths. And these partnerships between the schools and businesses is actually something that's a key part of the Scottish Government's developing the young workforce strategy, and it's been around since 2014. Now this photograph in the top left here of the screen captures some of the work of our female graduates working with other young women in high school as part of our school partnership, really trying to ignite and encourage their interest in STEM and water-related science. The image on the bottom left of the screen is again one of our former graduates this time, supporting young people at high school. Now these are young people who had been completing water-related STEM challenges with us. And one thing I want to kind of highlight here is that when we do these challenges with young people in schools, it's not just Scottish Water who gets involved in that. It's actually our partners and the supply chain as well. Challenges will include areas of innovation related to the water sector, such as how could we generate heat recovery from sewers, or getting them to think about the potential for renewables and how renewables could be applied across our asset base, for example, and getting them to really work on that. So in that situation, it's our own Scottish Water employees, quite often our graduates as well, but also our partners and suppliers who provide mentors, they provide training, they provide guidance to help the young people work through these kind of STEM challenges, these water related challenges. all so that they can learn the real world application of science and maths and technology and what that looks like within the water sector, so that education and science and water, is all kind of blended together to create a more meaningful educational process. Now, the image at the top right of the screen there is actually a cohort of our new apprentices. So we have we do have 170 apprentices in training with us at the moment, and they cover a wide range of different disciplines. And even during the pandemic, we have continued to recruit our apprentices right through the kind of pandemic and everything that has gone on there. So we brought in 47 new apprentices just back in November last year, and we're currently bringing in our next cohort of apprentices right now as well. And it's, be fair to say it would have been quite an easy decision to step back from that in the middle of a global pandemic, but we were very, very committed to our youth talent pipelines, and even though it was challenging, we continued with our plans and we brought the young people into the business. So in Scottish Water, we have 3 types of apprenticeship that we use. We use an apprenticeship in Scotland which is called a foundation apprenticeship, and these are for young people who are actually still at school, so they're in their senior phase of school, but they actually come to work with us. They spend some time in school, and then they spend some time as well at a further education or a technical college, working through a qualification in the senior phase of their school. So it's almost the first step to moving on to an apprenticeship after school. We also use what are called modern apprenticeships to fill very many of our technical roles. Typically, these will be our future technicians, our engineers, and our craftspeople. And these programs will typically last for 4 years, although sometimes they can be 5-year programs as well, depending upon the level of qualifications that are to be gained as the young people go through it. And finally, the kind of last one that we use is what we call graduate apprenticeships in Scotland as well. So in Scottish Water, we use graduate apprenticeships either to upskill our existing employees and help them gain higher level qualifications, or also as a pathway for some of our technical apprentices as they're coming through. So it gives our technical apprentices a progression route up to what would be an honours degree level in Scotland. And this final image on the bottom right of the screen there is actually just a cohort of our graduates as well. So we typically have around 40 or 50 graduates in development at any one point in time. The vast majority of whom will be technical specialists, although we do sometimes take on management trainees as well. And as with our apprentices, we continued to recruit graduates all during the pandemic period as well. So that gives you a bit of a flavour, I suppose, for what we do in terms of our own skills development, how we look to bridge that skills gap, in particular how we engage with young people right from the early stages to try and introduce the whole concept of the water sector to them, to get them to understand what it means to be a good citizen with respect to water. Ultimately, what we're looking for is that some of them may come on and join us for a career in the future, but even if they don't join us for a career, they will be advocates for Scottish Water and what we do and the vital role that we play in Scottish society. So this next slide is really my final slide. And in this slide, I suppose what I wanted to highlight is that within Scottish Water, we have been trying to take a leadership role, I would describe it as, in terms of the way we collaborate with our partners and our supply chain. So, our big kind of partners who work with us on investment and work with us in terms of our kind of asset investment, and really working with them to develop the skills and create opportunities for young people. And these are activities which we believe, again, going back to our purpose, really contribute towards our organisational purpose of creating a flourishing Scotland, so that societal element there. And to give you some sense of what that's been like, so during our last regulatory period from 2015 to 2021, we created opportunities for almost 700 apprentices and graduates within our partnerships, so with our partners and suppliers. And these would be in addition to all the young people that we were developing ourselves within Scottish Water, the ones I just referred to on the last slide. Now, I personally believe there is a massive opportunity for larger employers and asset owners to really innovate and collaborate with their suppliers and with their partners to create these new green jobs and create a sustainable economy. Whether this is through creating opportunities such as apprenticeships, whether it's providing access to work experience for young people, whether it's supporting schools and education through business partnerships with schools as well. Now in November last year, we ran a series of seminars for our partner organisations to promote what's called the Young Person's Guarantee in Scotland. So this is a national strategy and national policy in Scotland which seeks to offer every young person in Scotland aged between 16 and 24 the opportunity of 1, an apprenticeship, 2, fair employment, including work experience, 3, participation in a formal volunteering programme, 4, access to training, or 5, a place at a university or college. So everything about that young person's guarantee is intended to try and make sure that our young people are not really disproportionately affected by the pandemic, and that there are opportunities available for them to realise their potential and to progress and get employment, get education, get training. So for us promoting that to our partners, and there was about 100 different people from partner organisations turned up to the seminars to hear from us. For us, it was an ethical thing to do, to demonstrate that leadership during a very challenging period for Scotland's young people. However, we also believe, again, that it's something that will benefit the wider water sector in Scotland in the medium to longer term by strengthening and growing our skills base. So it's an ethical and it's a responsible thing to do, but it also makes good business sense too. And here at Scottish Water, we have plans to ensure that that 1.44 billion litres of water that I spoke about earlier at the start will be delivered entirely by renewable energy by the 2040. And this will involve operating all of our assets with renewable power, just as Kim was mentioning earlier, transitioning our entire fleet to zero emission vehicles, and also reducing the carbon intensity of our investment programme by around 75% through zero emission design principles and low carbon construction techniques. So reducing our operational and our embedded carbon. Now, all of these changes, of course, will have implications for skills, which is another reason why I feel that employer collaboration with government bodies, with our supply chains, with other strategic skills partners on skills development and creating green jobs is absolutely vital to the overall economic recovery and also to bridging any skills shortages that might exist. Now, we've just entered a new regulatory period in Scottish Water, and the process outlined here on screen really provides an overview of a new project that we have just initiated with our new delivery partners. And this will really seek to determine what skills do we need for the future, linked to our investment plan and our investment profile going forward. What does that demand look like in terms of those skills? What type of green jobs might be involved in that, for example? How do we collaborate with partners on those solutions? So what are the infrastructure, the qualifications, the solutions that we need in place to develop those skills, whether that's with colleges, universities, the skills bodies in Scotland, whether it's with third sector organisations and voluntary organisations as well. But all of that, looking at it as a project about how we collaborate together to look at the skills we will need for the future, to make sure that we can develop them together and that we can grow that, the green jobs that we need for the future. And as I say, we had 700 apprentices and graduates during our last investment period. We will be hoping and really striving to increase that over the next investment period that we have. So I really feel this collaborative work and the influential role that water operators can play to build skills, to create green jobs, represents a massive opportunity for us to deliver very positive, very tangible, and ultimately very sustainable societal and environmental impact in terms of what we can do as a sector in water. And that's really my last slide, and that was all I was hoping to say today. and yeah, hopefully you enjoyed that.
Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you for sharing Scotland's perspective. We started this panel, it has been quite a journey, because we started this panel in the north of Portugal, then went to Hamburg, then Scotland, and now we will go to Turin, Italy. We are running a little bit late on our schedule, so I must inform our viewers and also our panelists that we are skipping the debate part because we are really running a bit late. So I will give the floor to Beatrice Colleroux. She's a researcher from the SMATS Research Center. Beatrice, please share with us Turin's example.
Thank you very much. Good evening to everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So for those who don't know us, SMAT is the water operator which is in charge for the water supply service in the metropolitan city of Turin, in the northwest of Italy. So we provide drinking water, and also we collect and treat wastewater for a population of about 2 million people in almost 300 municipalities. So the core business of SMAT is, of course, to provide a high-quality service to our final users while respecting all the requirements that are imposed by law for the quality of drinking water on one side and of the effluent to be returned to the environment on the other side. Starting in 2008, SMAT strongly committed towards research and innovation. And with the inauguration of our research center, and today it is spread in 2 different premises, one specifically dedicated to drinking water and the second one to wastewater, for a total of almost 3,500 square meters entirely devoted to research and innovation activities and to laboratories. So we have inside the research center laboratories fully equipped with state-of-the-art instrumentation for almost 6 million euros. And over the past 10 years, we carried out 110 projects, 14 were closed in 2020, and 23 are ongoing this year, with 2 of them funded from Horizon 2020. The implementation of the projects involved 80 employees from different operational departments of the company, in addition to 7 full-time researchers with a variety of scientific competencies which range from engineering to physics, biology, chemistry, and biotechnology. So all the projects are carried out with a number of Italian and international partners, and at the moment we have 15 active partnerships with university and research centers, and with 38 industrial partners. So now that I gave you a little bit of figures about what we do, what is our activity, I would go straight to the main point of this presentation and to the conference itself. So I think the core topic is about answering the question of why SMAT decided to commit such an amount of resources to research and innovation, to fostering advancement in knowledge in the water sector. And in the second place, how would this knowledge contribute to an ecological transformation and to a sustainable and fair future more in general. To do so, I will use some examples of some actual projects that we recently carried out. The first one was carried out in collaboration with the Institute for Geoscience and Earth Resources of the Italian National Resource Council. And with them, we assessed the impact of climate change on underground water resources that are used for the production of drinking water in the Turin area. And through this study, we were able to assess the risk that are forecasted for our groundwater resources in terms of water quantity and water quality. And this way, we were able to identify some mitigation, some adaptation and mitigation measures, and to put them in place in order to make our company more resilient towards those potential impacts. The second project I would like to mention is apparently less closely correlated to sustainability, but because it comes from very far away, it was a project that concerns space. But I will prove that the final result is actually in the direction of sustainability in terms of safe access to water. The project was carried out in 2 phases. The first one, starting in 2012, was funded by the European Space Agency. And the second phase ended in 2019 and is funded by the European Commission through Horizon 2020. The initial objective of the project was to find the most appropriate solution to provide safe water to astronauts during their long-term space missions. So in these scenarios, water needs to be stored for a long period in a confined environment, and it is prone to possible contamination from the presence of human beings in the same environments. But in these cases, water contamination is actually critical because it could threaten the survival of the astronauts themselves. So what we found at the end was a system which is able to control water on site and real time, and to operate prompt decontamination operations in case of necessity. So once we had this system in our hands, we actually found a number of potential terrestrial applications on Earth. For example, to prevent waterborne diseases in critical facilities like hospitals or childcare facilities, or to assure access to safe water in very remote areas, or in case of natural disasters that might disrupt the normal water supply. I will try to be as short as possible, but I cannot conclude without briefly mentioning the number of research and innovation activities that are carried out in order to turn wastewater into wastewater treatment into a system of resource recovery. So what you see here in the picture is our wastewater treatment plant in Castiglione Torinese, where many of our innovations are actually tested and put in place. Not only to optimize the process and like minimizing the energy and chemicals consumption, but also to turn wastewater into a valuable resource in terms of energy, reusable water and materials in a circular economy perspective. As an example, I will only mention one of those projects that was a feasibility study about the creation of a plant for the production of biomethane. I heard from our colleagues from Hamburg that they have the same system in place to exploit biogas. So this led to the actual implementation of the plant, and now we have a fully operational system since June 2020. As you all probably know, from the sludge from the wastewater undergoes a number of biological processes that naturally produce biogas, which is mainly constituted by methane and carbon dioxide. And methane in particular is a gas, a greenhouse gas with a very high global warming potential, which is almost 30 times that of carbon dioxide. And its release into the atmosphere would actually have a negative impact in terms of climate change. So what we did was to set up this system in order to remove any contaminants in the methane, and to make it suitable to be used as an alternative to fossil fuels for transportation. So this way, on one side, the global warming potential of our final product is actually reduced, because when it's burnt into the engines, it's turned back into simple carbon dioxide. And on the other hand, we can reduce the consumption of fossil fuels. So this is another example of how our interest as a water operator is actually perfectly aligned with the ecological interest. So, and this is not only under the economical point of view, because we can turn one of our waste products into a valuable product to be marketed, but also in terms of impacts of climate change, because it can, of course, hinder our capacity to provide a high quality service level, because the impacts of climate change, they're most likely able to affect our water resources in terms of water availability and water quality, and also to increase water demand, and at the end of the day, even to cause those extreme events that could ultimately damage our water infrastructure. So with this last example, I have concluded. I hope I was brief enough. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Beatrice, for sharing. It was brief enough, but still quite comprehensive for us to see what Turin, what SMAT is doing in Turin. Thank you so much. I thank you to all our panelists in this second session, and I will now give the floor to Ricardo Campos. He is president of the Energy and Climate Forum. Ricardo, you can take the floor.
Thank you. I would like to start to send a warm greetings to all the participants in this Congress. Especially, I would like to do it, send a special greetings for the mayor of this city, Vila Nova de Gaia, and also for Bernard Van Nuffel, president of Aqua Publica Europea, also to Miguel Lemos of Águas de Gaia. It's an honor for the Energy and Climate Forum being in this Congress. We represent the civil society of 9 countries: Angola, Brazil, Cape Verde, Guiné-Bissau, Guiné Equatorial, Moçambique, Portugal, São Tomé e Príncipe, and East Timor. And as we are 9 Portuguese-speaking countries, I would follow the same attitude than Miguel, and I will speak in this Congress in Portuguese, but I know that the translators are very efficient, and my participation, I believe that will reach you in a very good English.
It is an honor, as I said, to participate in this conference. Being in the city of Gaia, a city of culture, education, a city of innovation and search for sustainability, as well as a city of work and of the Douro River, that we greet today as we are talking about water, solutions for water and for the future, for a more sustainable future we are all looking for. This Congress and these fora are of remarkable importance. Here we talk with each other in the demand for those that are solutions for a time of complex challenges and hard challenges. Complex and hard not just for Gaia, for the north of the country, not just for Portugal and Europe, for CPLP. Very important challenges that concern the whole mankind. We are now experiencing the 21st year. It's been 21 years since the beginning of the 21st century. In this century, the world has stumbled 3 times. This has not been a boring time. First, we had a financial crisis that led to the crisis of sovereign debt, and which generated the destruction of millions of companies all over the world. Recently, we had this crisis of this damn coronavirus that turned our lives upside down and led suffering to millions of families that lost their loved ones. And now this climate change, even more devastating and even harder with a harder and more complex solution than the ones that we experienced before. And I should say here that we can see this time of threats and dangers with a view of concern, anxiety, as in this 21st century, despite noticing that there is a growing mobilization and a growing sensitivity from public opinion, most of all the young people who demonstrate, we still depend 85% on fossil fuel for the whole energy we need all over the world. Though we say we are in a time of decarbonization, we keep launching into the atmosphere over 110 million tons of greenhouse gas effects, as if it was an outdoor sewage. But at the same time, we can have a different attitude to receive our responsibility. We know that this possibility of making every change necessary have fallen in the arms of this generation. That is a responsibility that we need to undertake. Very quickly, in this short period of time that we were given, we managed to perform a revolution into a sustainable economy, a more circular economy that may indeed reduce these greenhouse gas effect emissions. For us who have this obligation to perform change, this decisive attitude is very important and must go much beyond the Paris Agreement statements 6 years ago. And we must all be able to witness this change in the energy paradigm as no other generation has witnessed in mankind. We must migrate to a sustainable economy in harmony with the natural world and with the land systems. To do so, it's very important to promote a greater union between the reasons of science and that which should be a better informed attitude to create public policies in the decisions made by the boards of the companies, whether multinational or SMEs, or even public companies, with a better informed attitude in that which should be the change of behavior for all of us as a civil society. And I talk about the reason of science because for decades now we have known that burning coal, oil, natural gas issues GHGs and leads to greater infrared influence. We know it's not good, but we keep on with this carbon model that leads us to a period of consequences where we no longer have time and we cannot delay any further the actions that must be implemented so that we may leave as a legacy for the future a more sustainable planet where people can indeed have hope and opportunities to search for their happiness. Therefore, what we need the most, and that's what I would like to underline in this Congress, is for the reason of science to reach the actions of politics, corporations and people, so that from the many ideas, and this conference is important because of that, to gather ideas that will lead to a decisive action to fulfill projects, to implement projects, deepening our solidarity, as can be clearly particularly seen in this European Aqua Publica, in a very important sector as that of water. By deepening such solidarity, by listening to scientists, I am certain we will make a difference. In less than a year, we managed to solve the problem of finding a vaccine to cure a disease. If we should listen to scientists and the solutions they may present to us, certainly we will be up to the possibility of overcoming this climate change. Water, we usually say, is life. Drinking water represents 0.65% of all water, and we should talk about solutions that must be implemented so that in this chapter as well, adapting to a climate change reality, we may make a difference. We need to think a lot about the way we manage water, and the contribution of all participants in this Congress is of the utmost importance. We must understand the quantity of energy we spend to pump, store, treat and distribute water. And we must understand that it is not possible for us to keep wasting more than 50% of that water in our journey. The World Bank estimates talking about 32.5 million liters of water every year, 32.5 billion. In this time of climate change, when greenhouse effect gas leads us to facing terrible changes in our climate with extreme climate events growing in frequency, we must think about the way we size and prepare our infrastructures that were in the past prepared for events that took place one every 100 years, and now it's one every 25 years in some geographies of the world, even with greater frequency. We must think about the need to store water. Water heating in the oceans leads to a disruption of the water cycle to be more frequent, with stronger storms and longer periods of drought and deeper periods of drought. So it's important to store water, but we cannot keep doing it in water dams with a high environmental impact. We must search for engineering and technical solutions to overcome this challenge. We must think about the priorities that the use of water must have for the future as a scarce resource: agriculture or our homes' taps. We must think on whether events like the one that happened in Jakarta or in Cape Town in South Africa, when suddenly water was unable to get to people's taps, whether in our countries we won't be also subject in this climate change scenario to that happening. So we must adapt to face those needs in terms of water usage. We must think about water efficiency. We must think whether we shouldn't reuse water, as every year we spend millions of liters of water to irrigate gardens or to wash our cars with water that could be drank by all of us. So there is a lot to be done, a lot of thinking. Some has found some answers in this Congress, some are yet to be discovered. We must do it on behalf of our children, our grandchildren, on behalf of the future. Congratulations to the organizers of the conference, congratulations to Gaia, to Portugal and to Europe for being present in this time of action.
And now it's a pleasure to have with us Mr. Bernardo van Nuffel, President of Aqua Publica Europea, with a sum up of some of the main ideas of this conference.
Hello, do you hear me? Yes. Good evening from Brussels, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me thank the Chief Executive of Águas de Gaia and friends, Miguel Lemos Rodriguez, for proposing and involving Aqua Publica in the organization of this high-level conference that has addressed key issues, not only for water operators or for the water sector, but for society at large. It was the first time that we have organized a conference open to everyone and addressed to the general public. I think that through this conference, we are contributing to raise citizens' awareness on the fact that water cannot be taken for granted, as suggested by Mrs. Dozer from the European Commission. We should definitely repeat the format of this conference in the future, as the engagement of the society and citizen is key to address these challenges. Let me also express gratitude to the Portuguese government for the support and high attention that it paid to this conference. I think this will certainly cheer up our Portuguese colleagues, but also all the European colleagues alike. As the current rotating presidency of the EU, the Portuguese government is giving a strong political impulsion on the issue of water and environmental protection. But it is also combining this with the priority of achieving a fair recovery for all citizens, as confirmed in the recent summit in Porto and as clearly recalled today by the Portuguese State Secretary for Environment, Mrs. dos Santos Costa. The conference of today has been reached with very interesting contribution from a plurality of different perspectives and experiences. It's definitely not easy to wrap this up in a few minutes. Let me try anyway to highlight some elements. The first is that the debate confirmed how the protection and efficient use of water resources play a key role for the future of our environment. It also confirmed how complex this objective is to be achieved. With appropriate policy instruments, because as we often say, water is really transversal to different societal uses and forever element of our ecosystems. In this sense, it is really encouraging to see the importance that water plays in the European Green Deal. The presentation from Mrs. Dozes has shown clearly that finally the importance of water is considered in many other sectors and policies like agriculture, pharmaceutical, chemicals. Finally, water starts to be in the political focus. As Aqua Publica, we also warmly welcome and support the new action plan for zero pollution presented today by the Commission. It's ambitious, and I would say it has political courage, as it acknowledges that in order to address some pollution problem, sometimes we need to establish clear targets and environmental limits. In other words, we need clear and bold actions that only politics can decide and enforce. The theme of the political courage leads me to the second element I would like to highlight. The debate also confirmed that, like for the environment more generally, also for water, we need a deal. We know very well that water is essential for life, is essential for healthy environment, and is essential for our social and economic development, as explained very well by the Portuguese State Secretary. There cannot be economic development without healthy water resources. At the same time, the protection of water resources has a cost, but this cost will be there in any case and will be higher with polluted resources. So, as argued by Mrs. dos Santos and as stated in the Zero Pollution Action Plan, the fight against pollution is a way to ensure that the benefits of economic development are shared in a fair way among all citizens and with future generations. That's the way we interpret the concept of the deal, green and blue, which is also a political condition if we want that the mix of policies that are proposed to address the environmental challenge have the support of a majority of the citizens across territories and the social groups. Once again, the new action plan gives clear indications to achieve this fair redistribution of costs, and the debates show that there exists already a plurality of effective instruments, like those outlined by Portuguese water regulator and by Alfonso from the WWF, or governance arrangement, like in Paris, as explained by Dan Laird, that can help achieving this objective faster. Despite a positive EU framework and despite the existence of many good practices, we know that achieving the objective of the Green or Blue New Deal remains a challenge. And I come to the third element I'd like to emphasize. So it's clear that moving from the general framework to concrete action is complex, as it requires the effective coordination of a plurality of different institutional actors and stakeholders, as reminded by many speakers. It is a matter of coordinating different political priorities, different administrative systems and capacities, different and sometimes clashing interests. At the center of this complex articulation, there is often the local authorities that are often those that have eventually the ultimate responsibility to implement environmental policy, and the need to mediate between different interests, as the State Secretary of Hessen and member of the Committee of the Region suggested, and as Dan Laird has illustrated concretely. As a local elected official, I know very well this pressure. We are ready to take up challenge, but it's important that local governments are adequately involved in decision-making processes and are supported with adequate resources, both human and financial. I would like to underline in particular the issue of skills and human resources that is central for local authorities to perform their role, as highlighted by Paul Campbell from Scottish Water. Luckily, in this context, local policymakers can often rely on the know-how and the industrial and scientific capacities of public water operators, which ensure that we can all enjoy very high quality tap water, following the new Drinking Water Directive. And one of the main missions of Aqua Publica is precisely to promote the development of these capacities in water operators through cooperation and knowledge sharing. And I'd like to thank the State Secretary of Hessen, Mr. Weinmeister, for mentioning our initiative dedicated to this objective, the Water Erasmus. The recent dramatic experience of the pandemic showed once again how important it is to know that we can rely on universal public services to ensure collective health, by ensuring continuity of the service even during the most difficult moments. Water operators in Europe have certainly contributed to our collective safety. They are also giving a concrete contribution to prevention on the spread of coronavirus through their detection activity in wastewater. No society can thrive without universal access to essential water and sanitation services. And as argued by the Portuguese State Secretary, leaving it to the market is not a very good option. But the last part of the conference also showed that, of course, also with help of the regulators, public water operators play an important role for socio-economic development that goes beyond just water. They are concretely contributing to the shift towards a green and circular economy by creating new skilled jobs, recovering precious substances, and energy from wastewater, helping building a more efficient city. They are really reservoirs of know-how and capacity that, thanks to their public nature, are available to all citizens and in particular to local policymakers. To conclude, I've got a very positive feeling from this conference and an invitation to work even more and together to build back better, as President Ursula von der Leyen would say. And I really hope that also citizens who are participating in this conference from the remote have got a similar feeling, including the motivation to get even more engaged in societal debate and action. So once again, thanks to our friends from Águas de Gaia for hosting the event. Thanks again to the Portuguese government for their support, and in particular to Minister Matos Fernandes, to whom I hand over for closing address. Thank you.
And now a closing address with João Pedro Matos Fernandes, the Portuguese Minister of Environment and Energy Transition.
Muito boa tarde a todos. Eu quero felicitar os promotores desta conferência, muito particularmente as Águas de Gaia, por terem, num só dia, juntado os dois grandes temas quando se discute a água. Por um lado, recursos hídricos, a sua escassez, a boa gestão, a qualidade das massas de água que existem na natureza, e por outro lado, os serviços da água, ou seja, a água que chega às nossas casas e também os efluentes que produzimos, e se quiserem, um tema que está no meio dos dois, que é a gestão das águas pluviais. Com o crescimento dos fenómenos extremos de pluviosidade em consequência do que já são hoje as alterações climáticas e os seus efeitos, é essencial nós podermos olhar para esta terceira rede como uma rede que, sendo uma rede de infraestruturas, não deixa de ser também uma forma de gerir os recursos hídricos. Estes dois temas são temas essenciais e, mais ainda, num país e num tempo onde a água é cada vez mais e de forma mais evidente um recurso escasso. Esta conferência realiza-se em Gaia, onde este problema não se concretiza, não tem ainda expressão, o que não quer dizer que os gaienses e todos os habitantes do país e, bom rigor, do planeta, mesmo que sintam que a água está disponível, têm sempre a obrigação de dela fazer um uso parcimonioso. Mas, como ia dizendo, esta conferência ocorre num país onde, numa parcela muito significativa, no sul do país, a sul do Rio Tejo, a seca deixou de ser conjuntural para passar a ser estrutural. Temos então que, em primeiro lugar, cuidar das origens. E cuidar das origens é manifestamente cuidar dos recursos hídricos. Temos que ter rios limpos, temos que ter rios com as margens tratadas, temos que ter rios preparados para os fenómenos de cheias, e o facto de chover menos ao longo do ano não reduz de forma alguma o risco desses mesmos fenómenos de cheia poderem surgir. Por isso, o investimento tão grande que fizemos em cerca de 1000 quilómetros de ribeiras para melhorar os próprios leitos, as margens e reconstituir as galerias ripícolas, por isso também no REACT, aquele programa muito direto que a Comissão Europeia criou para reagir à crise que resulta da pandemia Covid-19, 50 milhões de euros são para transportar estas soluções de base natural, já não para ribeiras, mas para os grandes rios portugueses. Temos, em Portugal, este ano, o maior número de bandeiras azuis de sempre, 372. Há pouco mais de 20 anos eram 65. Isto quer dizer o quê? Quer dizer que o esforço na melhoria da qualidade das massas de água e também das águas costeiras, em consequência do esforço que está a ser feito, principalmente por parte das autarquias, para o tratamento dos efluentes, tem dado resultados. Temos ainda o orgulho de Portugal, com 41 praias com bandeira azul no interior, ser o segundo país na Europa que tem mais bandeiras azuis em praias do interior, e isto independentemente da sua dimensão. Há então muito para fazer, mas estamos no bom caminho. Quando falamos dos serviços de água, temos que os percepcionar como uma forte vontade, e agir sobre eles gerindo-os, com uma forte vontade de termos um equilíbrio económico-financeiro na gestão desses mesmos serviços, pois essa é a única forma de podermos assegurar que, do ponto de vista ambiental e no limite da qualidade do serviço para o comum dos cidadãos, se não degrada. Depois do esforço enorme, 11 mil milhões de euros foram investidos nos últimos 25 anos, financiados por este quadro comunitário de apoio, quase 1 bi, é essencial nós cuidarmos desta dimensão da gestão, concluindo, naturalmente, aquilo que ainda está em falta, e ainda há concelhos em Portugal onde o nível de serviço tem mesmo que ter uma melhoria muito grande. Também para aqui, o próximo quadro comunitário de apoio vai dar uma grande ajuda, e no PRR, no Plano de Recuperação e Resiliência, fizemos uma aposta clara na região do país onde é mais frágil hoje a segurança do acesso à água, que é o Algarve, com um investimento de 200 milhões de euros, todo ele pensado na perspectiva da eficiência, todo ele pensado não na perspectiva de termos mais água, mas de garantirmos, isso sim, que não vamos ter menos água, porque essa é essencial à vida de todos nós. Dizer ainda, já perto do fim desta mensagem, que nunca nos podemos esquecer de uma coisa. A água é essencial para a nossa vida, mas a água é essencial para a vida de todos os seres vivos. Ou seja, quando pensamos na gestão da água, temos sempre que pensar na perspectiva do ecossistema. Não é gratuitamente que se podem cortar rios a fazer barragens ou açudes. Elas têm mesmo que ser muito bem avaliados, porque, de outra forma, o que podemos estar a fazer é pensar só em nós e não pensar em todas as outras espécies que, afinal, são fundamentais para a nossa própria vida. É esta perspectiva, no fundo, que resulta de um dos dois verbos-chave do Acordo de Paris, que é o verbo adaptar. Quem tem que se adaptar não são os recursos a nós. Quem tem que se adaptar somos nós aos recursos que a natureza nos dá, que a Terra nos dá, que foi sempre muito pródiga com todos nós, mas que nós sabemos tem limites, e a nossa atividade está a pôr em causa, não esses limites, que os limites estão fixados, mas está a pôr em causa a estabilidade desses mesmos limites, porque estamos, de facto, em muitos casos, a ultrapassá-los. É isto que é essencial. Massas de água, onde a qualidade da mesma água é cada vez melhor, sistemas domiciliários e sistemas de serviços de água equilibrados do ponto de vista financeiro, robustos do ponto de vista técnico, onde necessariamente temos que ter sempre as melhores tecnologias em torno daquilo que é o tratamento da água que vamos consumir e depois o tratamento dos efluentes que rejeitamos, mas sempre com esta perspectiva de fundo, que é também a de cuidar bem desta terceira rede, onde às vezes digamos menos, e quanto mais natural ela for, mais desentubada ela estiver, o que obviamente nos centros urbanos não é possível, que é a rede das águas pluviais, é da maior importância, e percebendo sempre isto. Dizer que a água é vida é uma frase muito simpática, mas nunca nos podemos esquecer. A água não é vida só para nós. A água é vida para todas as espécies e é por isso que temos que cuidar dela, sendo parcimoniosos no seu uso e garantindo que os ecossistemas se mantenham tão naturais quanto é possível eles manterem-se. Muito obrigado e parabéns pela conferência.
I think we have achieved so much in the time we've been together here, talking about the water's role and the future. The event is finished, but I think the mission of all of us doesn't really stop here. For me, it was a pleasure. Thank you all. Hope to see you soon and have a wonderful evening.